we're going live on YouTube now, and then I'll get the recording started once I can blast this out.
Yeah, what other stuff should I say top of show? My thing was gonna be this the best ever season of Auburn's history and 32-6 record, went to the Final Four, putting a banner up, won the SEC regular season, had the best player in the country, even if he didn't win all the awards he should have won. Had a great freshman.
Howie.
Just the coolest thing we've ever done. Maui champion. Good point. Good point.
Um,
What
uh,
other records did
doubled
we
our we
break?
double we doubled our wins against ranked opponents in the non-conference.
Oh
We
yeah,
won the
we
most.
almost set the country record. We had number one strength of schedule. Almost beat the was
No,
it the
we
Ken
did.
Palm ranking or the
No,
what
we
was
did.
it?
We won the most quad one games ever in a season.
Not all time in
No, can
NCAA,
no no no.
right?
Kansas had 18. I think we finished with 19 quad one wins.
But their 18 was in the regular season though, right?
I was that the regular
Yeah.
season? Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Well, so we were like one off or two off of the whole record all time. I'd love to know if we were, where we are, top five all time and
Something
can
like that. Yeah.
what was it? What's it
I
called
think
It's
we
again?
I
really
think we I think we finished like seventh or something in like the greatest Ken Palm teams ever.
it's
Wow.
really a function of like when your conference is amazing. Like that
Yeah,
Kansas, that
yeah.
Big 12 that year was incredible. And if we had pulled off one or two more wins, we
Oh
would have
wait,
been
hang
right
on.
there.
Did they just announce RJ Lewis?
So I'm
No,
Did I just
my
say that?
brain is burnt. What's it called again? The kind of wins we had?
Quad
Quad
one.
one, quad one. My brain's burnt. It's all done. Can't squeeze much more juice out of this lemon.
Oh, do you want to start recording while I blast this out?
Yeah, y'all good to go?
Ryan, I like your Knicks tweets right now.
Dude, we're trash, man.
They
It's
got the
okay. You're
first
gonna
game. We got the
another
first
another
game.
They
another.
should no, they should have lost that game.
I know, big run.
We should be swept.
All right. Recording in progress. Ready? Three, two.
He said we should have.
All right, you're back with the Jungle Podcast. It has been a wild run this year. As usual, on the last game of the NCAA tournament for Auburn, we've taken a little time to breathe and think and get the emotions off our chest and everything so that we can come to you with a bit of a more clear-eyed, big picture look. We lost in the Final Four to the Florida Gators, the eventual national championship, 79-73. But just think what happened this year, man. We set the record for the best Auburn record of all time at 32-6. We won the SEC in the hardest conference maybe of all time with the number one strength of schedule in the nation. We're putting two different banners up, a Final Four banner and an SEC regular season banner. We had the best player in college basketball. I know Janai Broom didn't win every award he deserved. He just got unlucky with Cooper Flag across the country there, but he won some of those awards. It's just been an absolutely spectacular season. When me and Matt started the podcast several years back, we were just frustrated that there wasn't enough Auburn basketball coverage, that the Auburn fan base, with how great of the team we've had over the years, just did not get enough love out there in the media verse, that people were not covering it the way they should have. There wasn't any exclusive Auburn basketball podcasts. Even the big beat writers, all thing, they would talk for 5 minutes about it and talk about the other stuff's recruiting or whatever else for the rest of softball, baseball, whatever. They talk about that for days, but they wouldn't talk about basketball. So we said we're gonna do it. We were already recording or talking after every game on the phone. Let's start recording them. And then our boys Ryan and Ben are just absolute Auburn basketball freaks. They can't help themselves. They were already texting us. We were already chatting. They're already our go-to guys to talk to the sport with, and they've joined us full force this year as co-hosts, and they've been on the past years too. And it's just been an amazing ride to watch. It's just we were the maybe one of the best teams of all time in college basketball for a moment there. We fell off a bit near the end, but for a moment we saw what a fully functioning Bruce Pearl Auburn basketball Death Star could look like. We saw what is possible at Auburn basketball in this wild west of college sports right now. So we're on to talk about it. We'll see where this goes. I said before this podcast started that we'll just kind of see where it happens. We're not going to do this like a normal post game kind of thing. We're just going to see how people feel. And guys, War Eagle and Matt, what are you thinking?
War Eagle, man, it was an unbelievable season. Really culminating like what Bruce Pearl and this group has built. Obviously, a special group of players that most of whom don't have eligibility left anymore. We got old, as Ryan said. We had a really old, experienced team, and they from game two. Game two was Houston, right? And it was just full force the rest of the year. Such a fun team to watch. I can't remember. I mean, there's definitely not been a regular season as entertaining from a schedule perspective, from a results perspective, and just from the pretty basketball on the floor. Like, I know, Jackson, at one point we were texting about, like, do we really have the nation's number one offense? Like, out of 340 something teams, and we did almost the entire year until the very end. Then we ended up third or whatever. Um, Such a fun team to watch. They were good on both ends. And I think just a bunch of guys who everybody enjoyed watching play basketball. And the fact that so many of these guys, Tahad was, but then Turtle, Jakai, that all the first year players, it wasn't a team of first year players. It was a team of returning transfers or returning players in the program. They were just incredible. And for the first time in my life, I knew very early on, first time I've known at all that Auburn basketball could beat anybody in the country was this year. I don't know about you guys. The first time I've ever felt,
We were
I
going
don't care who we
beyond that.
play.
We were going beyond beat anybody in the country. There was talk at one point about beating anyone in the history of Auburn or of college basketball. For
Yeah,
a moment there, let's not forget the hype that was going for a moment there.
you're right. But this was also a fairly, if you look at analytics, which you can have a whole argument about how much these analytics may be
Never,
cooked a little
never.
bit, but like this was a year with a ton of really good teams, and most of them met in the Final Four this year, and just like a few years ago, you're so close, and it's easy to be disappointed that we didn't get past Florida. As bad as that Florida game was, we were down 1 point with 3 minutes to go. We were right there, and this team was just so good, and I think we wanted it for Bruce. I think we wanted it for the staff. I think we wanted it for these players, maybe more than ourselves, which speaks to the fan base, like how bought in the fan base was with these guys. So just it was a pleasure to get to watch them play. I think in November or December, I said this is the best team I've ever seen Auburn have, and I don't say things like that. So it's just a special group that I'm so glad they made the Final Four because they will be remembered the way they deserve to be remembered now. Whereas if they had lost to Creighton or if they had lost to Michigan, the way the sport works, it just wouldn't have been remembered the same. So as disappointing as the end was, I'm really, really glad they made it to San Antonio and got to cement. I don't know how you could argue that this wasn't the best team Auburn's ever had.
Ben?
Yeah, and I think the thing that is most exciting for me is this is not the best team that Auburn is going to have. I think when you have seen the trajectory that Bruce Pearl has put this program on, I think that the future is even brighter. I think that we are going to be around for a long time as a good program. You think about what happened to us in 2018, right? The next year, a little bit rocky, and then COVID completely derails the tournament, right? Then we have the whole drama with Sharif. And then the next thing you know, we bring in Jabari and Walker, and bam, we're right back in it. We're right back in it. And then we go out and get Janai to replace him. And we have now stacked 4 consecutive NCAA tournament bids in a row. Little Auburn, the team that used to dream of 20 wins, has gone dancing 4 years in a row. We've had a defensive player of the year. We very nearly had a national player of the year this year. And you think about the teams that Bruce Pearl has done this with. I mean, this was a team that has been built brick by brick by brick. You bring in Janai Broome, then you go out and you get guys to shoot around him. Then you go out and you get a great senior in Miles Kelly. You bring in a freshman 5-star like Tahad Pettiford that can stir the drink for this team. I mean, it was built slowly and over time. And now I think we put ourselves in a position to reload. But what made this team so special to me is that you're never going to see another basketball team like this. Definitely not at Auburn, but probably not ever. When you think about guys like Dylan Cardwell and Chris Moore that have been around the program for 5+ years, you think about going out and getting a gunslinger, a 1-year rental senior in a Miles Kelly to bring in. He was one of those few players that it was just that short-term flash in the pan rental that I think is going to become the norm. Think about a guy like Janai Broome, a guy that came in unheralded to replace a superstar and then stuck around for 3 years and got better every single year. I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to see a team that it gets put together like this and it stays together like this. It was a real
Not
privilege.
in the modern day college basketball, you're not.
It was a real privilege. And when they're old men like Charles Barkley that they can't hit a basketball shot in a suit, they can still look up at those banners hanging in Neville Arena and know we did that.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm not going to treat this as a funeral. This is more of a celebration of life, a celebration of a team that brought us so much joy this year. Uh, I think I don't know about y'all, but I go back a lot throughout different random points of my year and just go watch 2019 highlights of Final Four runs. I go watch random games, highlights on YouTube and stuff like that. And this is going to be one that I'm going to watch for a very long time this season. I mean, just the way that this team dominated games and played basketball, I think that we have never really seen Auburn play before in the sense of how efficient we were offensively. We were always known as a run and gun type program. We always had small guards. We always had not a lot of inside out play. And yet that script was like completely flipped this year. And it was like a refreshing change of basketball that I don't think we really fully appreciated until it might have been over because our guard was up that we need to prove this team is as good as we think it is. And it at the end of the day it was. I mean, think about how long it took us to get to an Elite Eight, right? 2019, and then a Final Four 2019. And now we did it with such a dominant team this year that I think, I'm still hurt about how it ended just because I was there and I didn't want to be there afterwards. Jackson knows how that feeling way too well.
I think every Auburn fan knows that feeling a little
I
too well.
forgot you went, Ryan. We're gonna have to get a lowdown of the whole event, man.
Yes, and at the end, I want to talk about your experience versus my experience.
Okay,
I
yeah,
have some
yeah.
thoughts.
I have strong thoughts also on the Final
Okay.
Four experience. Like highs and lows for sure, for sure. Mine's
Yes.
a lot of location based stuff, but
Yeah.
Well, Ryan's experience was terrible.
It was.
here's an interesting thing, guys, that we almost forgot. We did season previews with answers where we have hot takes
Uh-oh.
and questions. I was like,
Uh-oh.
I
what are we
wonder
going to
which
talk about?
one
That
was scored the most.
yeah,
That turned out to be true all year.
I was kind of like
Ryan's gonna be
deciding what we were going to
Ryan's
like
gonna
talk about
dunk
this
on us like
pod.
Ja'Kai Howard.
And I was like, we're just gonna vibe. But no, we're gonna crucify all of us for our terrible takes, on the day after Easter here. But oh man. The one thing I wanted to talk about, or I wanted to give Ben a task here, maybe while we warm some stuff up, because
Uh-oh.
usually on a win, which this season was a win, we pick an MVP. I think we all know who the MVP of this team is, but I'm really curious to know the numbers on MVP for who we picked this year because we at times, many times said we got to pick Janai more. We're gonna look up and we're gonna pick all these other people and screwed this whole thing up because we could not get to the end of the year and not have him dominate our MVP discussion. I'm really curious. I have a few. I think he probably won by 6 or 7 games, but we definitely like didn't give him his due as much as we should have.
Oh, strong disagree. We did a fantastic job this year of not shying away from when Janai was great.
I
But
think the first game of the year, we were like, honestly, any game that like after the Houston game, it was like honestly, he could be the MVP in any game. So I think we all tried to go out of our way a little bit to put up arguments for other people.
hold on. I don't want to sustain any of that nonsense because we had one of the top freshmen in America in Tahad Pettiford, right?
Yeah.
Very deserving. There were games that he won for us. Denver Jones was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. He wasn't in the top 4, but he was in that top 10 going into the tournament for Defensive Player of the Year. We had some outstanding players that on a Janai Broomless team
Very true.
would have absolutely been the dude. Janai Broom is a generational player.
Chat, let us know if you got some topics you want us to talk about. We have a lot of them in here, but I'm just curious to hear what you guys want to think about at the end of the season. While Ben tallies up who MVP is or what I kind of want to see the next guys on that list too. One other thing I want to shout out is Big MVP has won the MVP for our podcast with 23 appearances on the year. Ben Young has won the MVP for the Jungle most attended host here. I was trying to figure out what was on our Google sheet over here. I was like, what is this like chart over here? And it's our chart because we were getting arguments on the
We're
text
tracking
thread.
metrics and KPIs over here, man.
I was getting roasted for not being enough pause this year. And I said, I'm pretty sure I was on like 50% of them or like most of them, like more than other people other than Ben. He's no. So I think Matt put that together maybe. And it was 23, which was 67% for Ben. And as I said, I think I had been on 50% of the pods this year. I am at 50% exactly on the year with 17 games. Matt was at 14. Or wait, no, Ryan was at 14 with 41%. Wow, fireworks are going off. Fireworks are going off. And Matt comes up struggling in last place with 10. He was on 29%, 30% of the podcast, which I didn't feel like it was that low. And then shout out to Shooty Hoops Will. He came on 5 this year, which was great. We love having Shooty Hoops Will on. Really helpful when we were struggling with some of our
Norman
timetables.
Brothers. Norman Brothers.
Yeah, you
There
can't
it
forget
is.
the Norman Bros, man. We had the trifecta a couple times. I'm not gonna lie, for a long time I thought it was Shoddy Hoops, Will.
Shoddy Hoops. All right. We know which podcaster co-host on here can't read. So that's fun. And I
Well,
thought
we've
I was
also
the
got a
vibes guy.
we've also got a podcaster that doesn't know balls, so we're
We're
really struggling here.
We're all vibe. Yeah, I'm a vibes guy. Ben's a vibes guy. Matt and Ryan are the analytics guys here. But now we can move on, as Ben will hopefully give us the MVP total here in a minute, to our hot takes. I think we might as well just start there, right? We can go through here and pick who, or like I can let you guys know, and we could talk each topic maybe. The first one on our list for the SEC preview. In fact, we have a season preview to talk about too. What do we? I guess we start season preview. Let's go
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
season
let's go
preview.
let's go all the way
the
back.
biggest one is going to be who everyone picked as their final like starting lineup because
Oh,
I'm
you want to
pretty sure
start there?
we
You want to
all
start
had
there?
JP Pegues,
Here we go.
right?
Let's see who we had in here. I don't know if we have that on here. We'd have most excited player. Was that SEC preview we did that on? Depth chart. Oh, here we go. Okay. We got Jackson had JP, Denver, CBM, Cheney, Jonai. So I missed on 2 of them. 3 out of the 5. We had Matt, JP, Denver, Miles Kelly at the 3, Cheney, Janai. I'll start. Well, he has a start. He got the position wrong, but 2 and the 3 are
Good start.
interchangeable. I know you said that 1,000 times, so they didn't look that interchangeable to me, but they are. They are. So you've got 2. You got 3 out of the 5. So we'll see if anybody got 4 out of the 5. That'll be the winner here. Ben had JP, Denver, Miles Kelly, Cheney, Janai. Again with 3 out of 5 there. And last, let's see if anybody broke away here. Ryan, could you do it? JP, Denver, Miles Kelly, Janai, Dylan Cardwell. Ryan wins this one. 4 out of the 5. We all screwed up on JP Pegues, of course. But wow, Ryan, I remember at that podcast you saying that and all of us going,
Everybody lost their
oh,
mind. They lost their
oh.
mind when I said the Twin
Ri-
Towers.
Ryan lives in Auburn. I think he knew because Bruce said he pretty much promised that to Dylan Cardwell and Janai if they came back. He was going to play them both and potentially start them. So Ryan had some good insight there geographically. He knew what was
And,
going
and
on.
I was afraid of that, honestly. We've seen in other sports and stuff when they start playing weird lineups, sometimes it's not because 2 players are that good. It's because you don't have a player at that position and you're like trying to compensate. And there was times like, man, I think overall this year, 75% of this year, 80% of this year, we loved the 2 bigs. It was really fun. But there was a little bit of time there. First, 5 games or so, we really didn't think that was going to work out, did we? And now, like,
Yeah. I
kind
mean,
of hard
yeah,
to
there
imagine
was
without it.
I mean, it's hard to go back into the old bowels of the brain here, but I mean, there were I do remember there were lulls against inferior opponents where I felt like we were trying to do too much, and it was kind of like, oh well, this isn't gonna work. Like Janai, he's out there trying to shoot threes. Like we don't need that at all. Like I remember there was a game. It might have been North Alabama. His first 3 shots were threes. And I was like, this is not going to work. And one of them was a step back and he hit it. And I remember in our group chat, we were all like, this is just, if that's going to be his game all year, you can go ahead and we're going 500 SEC play. And it calmed down a little bit. You know, I think maybe like the Ole Miss game on the road is when he hit like a step back 3. And at Alabama at home to tie the game, he had, and that was like really the only times in SEC play I can remember him doing that. But yes, there were that point in the season, about 5 to 6 games in, we were like, this is just not a good look because immediately after the first 2 minutes or 3 minutes of the game, they would sub Cheney right in. You know, it was like they started and they subbed him right in. But, you know, when we got into games, especially in the tournament, teams had no answer for that lineup. They really didn't. And it worked out so well. You
Well,
know,
we figured out how to use Ryan, you and I talked about this. Broom is just such a good center. He's such a good center. We had the whole 2 years of him playing center for us, but by the middle of the year, maybe earlier than that even, we were doing new things. To your point earlier about the offense, where we were using Janai at power forward in a way that we haven't really used some of our power forwards before, and we had the big to big passing and the high low game, and like Burgomaster and everybody else involved in the offense really did a good job of settling in, and it became one of the best lineups in the country um, as we went. But you're right, it was rough at first, but man, you were all over it with the effectiveness of those two guys, and they learned and they grew to play together really well too. I think they just got comfortable.
I think they didn't know how to get Janai down there to do his thing at first. Dylan was like hogging space down there, and then it forced Janai to shoot from distance. And for a little bit there, we thought that like we knew Janai took a big step up, and then we thought, oh, it's because he can hit threes now. No, he just got so dominant down low, like a grown man playing against everybody basically this year. And the threes were good. I think he ended up around 30%, but there was a time where we were thinking he was shooting over 30% and that was what was going to change the game. But really, just he was a grown man down there. It's hard to explain the step up he took this year just down low.
It's really a jarring experience is if you go back and watch Auburn's NCAA tournament game against Iowa 2 years ago. If you go look at Janai, just how skinny he was. Like you don't realize we thought he was big then, but then you go and you fast forward 2 years later to this year, and it's like a jarring, like, holy cow, that's a completely different guy. And there were points I remember watching against like Michigan and Creighton and those guys that they had, big 7-footers that were, allegedly really good defenders down low. And they would rush Dylan down on the block and like almost like he was more comfortable with more guys in the post around him. And I think that was something that they picked on late in the year, and especially in the tournament that like teams didn't really have an answer for. But there were flashes towards the end of last year. I remember the Florida game in the SEC tournament, that Janai like was really coming along in his low block game. Like, because in that first year he was here, he really struggled around the rim. Like, I think it was a step in competition, whatever. Last year it got better, and then this year was like he performed it the way that we thought he was going to. And I think that's what elevated us even higher because we went all in on him in terms of NIL, I think, in the offseason.
And I think there was a lot of talk that for him to make the NBA, he would need to be a power forward. He's not the bounciest guy. He's not the biggest guy to play center. He's going to need to play power forward. So I think there was maybe a promise there, maybe at least talk that, hey, we're going to try you out as power forward. Plus with Dylan, we want Dylan to come back. Hey, it's your 5th year. Please come back. We weren't sure if he was even going to play basketball. Like we were getting kind of vibes last year that he wasn't even going to come back and play basketball. He might just stop playing basketball altogether. Hey, you're going to be a starter this year. That might have enticed him again, and it all worked out. I think the staff had to figure out a couple things offensively, how to get these passes, how to clear out the lane. It helped that we had great shooters this year. And then on top of that, too, the pick, because you're the only one that picked Cardwell to start. I think my vision of why Chaney would have started over Cardwell is that at some point during the year, Chaney would just be too good. He's just too diverse of a scorer and playing defense, and Cardwell just still, even after 5 years, is not great on offense necessarily. But I think another aspect of this is not just that Cardwell played well and that the two bigs played well, is that Chaney never did come up and grab that starting role. He never did kind of take that next step we thought Chaney might take.
I think that's a solid argument. And when you look around the league and also around March Madness, generally speaking, you saw a lot of teams run with that double big setup. I mean, Florida had a couple of guys in their front court sharing space that were 6'10 and 6'11. Michigan was famed for their dueling 7-footers that they rode to the Sweet 16 and to a Big Ten tournament title. So it's not unusual to see college basketball teams take advantage of that kind of crazy size matchup that just forces teams to shoot really well, because not a lot of teams in college can shoot really well.
So we'll move on to the next topics. We got so many of them. First of all, shout out to Pocket Watch. Ike Jones, thanks for coming. Mr. Beautiful in the chat. Everyone's optimistic. Pocket Watch
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Pocket Watch says beautiful.
Was it?
I always knew he was beautiful.
And Pocket Watch says, is there a game I'm not aware of? There was. We just couldn't process it until now. It's taken this long.
It's a celebration of life.
Yeah. So new players most excited about.
Okay, wait, hang on.
Jet.
Before we get fully into the roast, do you want to do the MVP talk now, or do you want to save that
Yeah,
for
yeah.
later?
If you got it tallied, let's
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah. So listen, we did an outstanding job. All right, there were 32 wins this year, which meant that we had 32 MVPs. Take a wild guess at how many of those 32 belonged to the big man himself, Janai Broom.
21.
18. 18.
Ryan says 21. 14. We were a little bit better balanced that, but you got to remember, I think at least 3 of those wins, Janai Broom did not play the majority of the game. So
Uh,
that might have transitioned to 17 for him. Guess what our next highest collection of MVPs is?
Oh, it's a collection. Okay. I'm gonna say 7.
mm,
4.
5.
Matt's got it on the money. We got 2 players tied with 4 MVPs each: Tahad Pettiford and Miles Kelly. After that,
Man,
nobody had
when
more than
Miles
3.
goes off, Miles goes off. He wasn't consistent, but when he went off, man.
Yeah, Miles had our very first MVP of the year. It was kind of undeniable when he hit 7 3-pointers to open the season. But I thought it was fitting that Janai had our first SEC MVP in that Mizzou game. And Janai Broom was also our last MVP of the year against Michigan State when he came back from the dead to hit a dagger 3-pointer late and cap I believe it was a 22 and 15 night. I mean, that game, oh, I want to live in that moment forever where he comes back out of the locker room and they're like, oh, Janai's coming back to join his guys in the men. No, he's checking into the game. He's checking in. Grabs a one-handed rebound and hits a dagger 3-pointer to make sure that Michigan State could not come back and hand Tom Izzo his first ever loss to the SEC in the big dance. Ooh, we had some high highs this year. You know that?
Who else we got MVP? How'd it go down for the rest of the
So
list?
we had Denver Jones and Cheney Johnston were tied with
Wow.
MVPs. Can you believe that? They both had 3 each. We had CBM with only 2 MVPs. So
I
sayonara
would not
Banker
have bet. I would have
Mazzara.
bet for sure he had second. If you told me before the year, even halfway through the year, I would have picked CBM second. He was just that he was supposed to be the Swiss Army knife, and we'll get into him in a bit. But
I think he did a lot, and a lot of it was understated. Dylan and Jakai Howard both each had 1 MVP, and
Ja'Kai Howard with the MVP.
I still think Dylan should have had 2, but I was a little drunk. It was late at night, and I got outvoted by Matt in the chat with Janai Broom's incredible 21 point, 16 rebound performance against North Carolina. But in that game, I've got to go back and read you the stats because I simply could not believe that we got this kind of an explosion out of Dylan Cardwell against the Memphis Tigers. Now, granted, Memphis a little undersized, but they were a tournament team. They did pretty good this year. They got one of the best players in the portal. But Dylan Cardwell was 8 for 8 from the floor. He hit a 3-pointer. He had 6 assists and 3 rebounds to finish with a career high 18 points. But our last little bit of MVP stats, Janai Broom swept Maui. I mean, it was his national coming out party. It was what put him so far ahead in Player of the Year that it took Cooper Flagg going through one of the worst ACCs in history and just stat padding his way to San Antonio to steal that award from Janai Broom, who really won it all the way back in November.
Big one and done white boy out of Duke. You knew the marketing campaigns were going to be too big, especially in the NIL era. Gatorade, Reebok, everybody talking about it as an ESPN, giving them the ESPN treatment. Do we feel like Janai Broom got the ESPN treatment this year at least? I don't know if I feel like he did. Like that, like you
You
got to
know,
tune in to see Janai Broom. I feel like Cooper Flag took that
ultimately,
from him.
ultimately, I think what hurt him was how much time Janai spent injured. You know,
Yeah.
Janai missed a lot of time being hurt, and he got kind of his wooden moment late in the year where he got to come back from it. But he missed a couple of really important games being hurt. Cooper Flagg, I think didn't he miss the game after the Clemson game with some kind of ankle injury or something like that?
I don't even know if he missed that
that
one,
was the
right?
ACC tournament.
ACC tournament. That's right. Yeah, Janai Broom missed a couple of regular season games. He missed a small chunk of that Michigan State game, and a lot of that was sort of down the stretch, you know. But I mean, even when he came back, like that, I think about that effort that he gave against Tennessee, where he was just incredible and had another 2010 game. To
Insane, injured the way he did to come back like that and bully people still, even though he's limping all over the court.
It just goes to show what a technical monster he is. I mean, it's easy to look at him at 6'11 and 240 and think about him as like a physical specimen, but his skill, his ability to find where he needs to be on the floor and get his shot and grab rebounds, his basketball IQ this season was just off the charts. And of course, the best play of the game wasn't any of the points or rebounds of which he grabbed and scored a million. It was the assist to Miles Kelly in the corner for the winning 3-point shot. I mean, the things that Janai Broom did this season, we will never see again from a guy his size.
Yeah, he's I've never seen another player like him for any team.
Never.
I don't know if I'm just so married to my own take that he's just not an NBA player and he is not that athletic. Although I will say this year, he clearly put in a ton of work the last 3 years. Whoever mentioned that. Like, he's gotten so much better from where he was when he first got to Auburn. I can't believe that he got to the level he got this year, even with all the injuries. I mean, he is very dramatic and yeah, I was the only person not surprised he came back in that NCAA tournament game, called that right when it happened. But you could not watch this year and not respect the heck out of like he in an NIL era where he could have easily shut it down at any point. He was the clear alpha, the clear leader on this team. I think that was my biggest question mark of like, is he that tough? Is he that guy to lead? And he really was. Like he really took so many steps forward. And to I just can't believe he had the year he had with the stats he had, with the injuries he had, with the opponents we had. I don't know if we'll ever see another year like that. I think he's such a unicorn in the best ways, and he is going to have a great pro career somewhere. I don't know. Maybe he'll get on an NBA roster, but like I just I you can't say enough about how he handled this year, in my opinion. I just think he answered all the questions that anybody ever had about him, and his legacy will be remembered so fondly because of how he handled all the yeah, he's a good rebounder, he's a good scorer, but he put it all together this year and he realized that it mattered it was bigger than him. It was the team, it was the potential of winning a title. He just never quit on this team, and in a sport where there's a bunch of guys quitting all the time or not giving it 100%, he just never did. He really got it. He was a true man and a leader for this team, and it was a joy to watch him. It's a shame that he couldn't be 100% the second half of the year. I think he still deserved National Player of the Year, but it obviously limited him. I don't know how you could think otherwise if you watched all the games.
Listen, Charles Barkley is the Moby Dick of this podcast. Partial creation of this podcast is in hopes that one day we might could interview him. He's like, I have a framed picture of Charles Barkley that sits above my desk and has sat above my desk for years. I got this in college and it sits above my desk with a little rosary around it. That's how much we care about Charles Barkley. Ben's got the Charles Barkley Red Malt vodka thing over there. I have the Charles Barkley detective comic book here. This is how much we love Charles Barkley on this podcast. But is Janai Broom the best to ever do it in an Auburn basketball jersey?
Yes.
Hard to argue. I mean, I think so. Yeah. At the end of the day, the accolades, the banners, etc. No other player no other player could say that really. Well,
He obviously had a lot more help than some guys we've had previously. Like this was a really good team, and the coaching staff obviously is the best we've ever had. But man, when you look at the accomplishments and the fact that Bruce brought this up before the season was over, is he the best transfer, the most impactful transfer in this transfer era of any college basketball transfer? You can make the argument that over 3 years he really was. So it might be recency bias. None of us watched Charles Barkley play ourselves. We're not that old, but I've never seen anything quite like him. It's pretty amazing.
It's funny, back in 2019, once we made the Final Four run, everyone was in jersey retirement mode. Like, oh, we got to hang Bryce Brown up in the rafters, and we got to hang, Jared Harper up in the rafters. But when you look at someone like Janai Broom, who, those guys were incredible players, and they meant so much to the program and to those teams. But like as a whole, in terms of your career and the numbers, and like basically should have been National Player of the Year. Like we may never have a guy like that. Like Jabari was a top 3 pick, right? And yet Janai
nowhere near as dominant. Nowhere near as dominant.
Yeah, I mean, yes, if he would have been here a 3-year period, absolutely. But, in terms of a career at Auburn, there's no, I think he's got to be the top guy.
Well, how
I
about
think the
this?
big
Have you ever seen a team? I've never seen an Auburn team built around one guy like that in basketball. Our entire offensive and defensive strategy was kind of anchored on him, and it it was a. I mean, I just it when he was out, it really felt like, oh my gosh, what are we had a bunch of good players, but our entire identity was built on this guy number four, and I think that plays into his argument as well for how important he is.
I think some
What's
of this is
funny is,
kind of like the Michael Jordan LeBron debate. Like it's different eras for sure. Like the 80s in college basketball is just different than what it is now. And I think honestly that's probably maybe one of Janai Broom's biggest arguments to be number one is just that against the number one strength of schedule in this modern era of NIL and bringing in people from all over the world to come in and play in the SEC and the hardest conference maybe all time, he was that dominant. He was that under control at all times with the ball. Like it was just incredible to watch. And I think, like I said, I wasn't born for Charles Barkley either. I think it's going to be kind of an MJ LeBron thing for a while for Auburn. And I would not, nobody out there hold your breath for some other great player like that. Don't compare anybody we ever get for the next however many years to Janai Broom because it's a fool's errand. Enjoy whoever we get next. Enjoy the seasons that come. But it's if you compare it to this season against Janai Broom, you're going to be disappointed every year. And if
There's
you
another
weren't happy
player.
this year, if you weren't happy for this year, just give up on college basketball because this is about as good as it gets.
There's another player in another sport that unfortunately has become like that sort of standard where anybody that looks like him, you hear echoes of his name. And I hope, and I definitely think that Janai Broom is going to become that, not just for Auburn, but for the SEC. When you have somebody with the touch and the finesse and that nasty sick spin move to the basket, the offensive skill set of a Janai Broom at that five position, you're going to be saying, oh man, that's shades of four. It was shades of four in Auburn right there.
I don't think we'll even see anybody with the same play type maybe for another decade. Like no one plays like Janai Broom
If
anymore.
ever. Who
It's
plays like that? I mean,
nobody plays
where
like
are you going
that.
to get? Yeah, I don't know if you get guys like that anymore coming up playing.
It was like playing against that wily old man at the YMCA that just has the whole bag of tricks. It doesn't matter how athletic you are, he's gonna back you down and get that goal, except for it was in the number one strength of schedule, best conference of all time on the number one Auburn team. But he was doing that to grown college kids that were getting paid millions of dollars. Yeah.
Part of it, think about Jackson. You remember this years ago when he first arrived. I remember my hot take. I remember I was so excited for I don't have hot takes. I said, you know what? Before he ever played a game at Auburn, I said, I think he's going to be the best post back to the basket player we've had in the
You
Bruce
had like
Pearl era, which
none.
is saying literally almost nothing. But to see what he's turned into, it's just been special to watch. And we have to kind of thank NIL in a way too, right? Because we don't keep a guy like that 3 years otherwise. He's kind of the perfect. Honestly, I think this is why our program is kind of set up to be good. I don't think necessarily we're gonna have a better team than this. Ben and I might disagree there, but the fact that
I did not disagree. Shocking.
we always have this, we always have these guys that just aren't quite this or fill in the blank. That Tahad's short. Janai's not that athletic, and I think we can hold some of those
oh,
guys more
Matt,
than
you're
the blue.
opening up the door for conversations for next year.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just
But let's
pointed
remember
out.
back a bit because I like looking backwards here. Remember we had Austin Wiley, and that was like the coolest thing we could ever done. Oh my God, we got 5-star Austin
We
Wiley,
got a
this big
Five-star.
old
seven-footer who can
guy.
catch the ball and dunk
Oh,
it.
yeah, and he's gonna dominate like Shaq out there, man. And we couldn't even figure out how to pass him the ball. We couldn't figure out how to do an entry pass to Austin Wiley. And then when we did figure out how to get the ball to his hands, they did not catch them. He could not catch the ball. And then on top of that, once he had it down there and backed his guy down, zero touch. No touch on him. And Jonai Broom just did all that stuff so effortlessly, unlike how I said that word. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch. And like we just got so used to it. And we saw this like slow progression year over year to see where he ended up that it kind of felt normal by the end. But it was not normal at all. It was a freak show out there. And because he wasn't like the most bouncy guy, I don't think people kind of maybe recognize what it was, but they will over the next couple years when we don't have anybody that looks like that ever again.
Yeah, that's a good
I
point. I mean, Wiley Wiley set the trend because I don't know if people remember this, but his first year here, he started in SEC play because he graduated early, didn't play in the non-conference, right? So he was like still a child, if you will, playing, and yet he was still he was a different player then than he was towards the end of his Auburn career because he could catch the ball. Something happened in between then, but there were shades and glimpses of Wiley that was like, man, this is really cool. Like, and we kind of, I wouldn't say got away from that, but like, you know, Walker Kessler is not the basket player, right? He's a shot blocker, he's a rim runner, and that's the way that college basketball goes. Like that's why Florida was so good this year, right? They had four of those guys who essentially could do that. And so yes, that all the points we made summarized. That's why Jedi Broome was as special as he was, because if you go back and watch the highlights of the Michigan State game or two other games, Michigan State they had zero answer for him to start the game. Like absolutely zero. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. You know, we made from a guard or a big wing, but not a post player like that. Like that's why we were so effective and efficient in the tournament against those teams with big guys, because even though they were big, they were not big and skilled like Jedi was.
We might see another guy of shades of Walker Kessler. Maybe not the triple double Walker Kessler, but you might I think you might see shades of another Walker Kessler in the coming 10 years of all basketball. But you might not see another Janai Broome ever. Maybe not for another 10, maybe not another 25 years, maybe not ever. So just man, if you experience this year, you experience something special. Ike Jones agrees in the chat that Broome is the new top guy for AUB ball. I was surprised how easy it was to have that conversation that he is. I think maybe some older Auburn fans will argue with us and Charles Barkley, and maybe this is just because we're a young Bucks podcast, But
But
next up,
if you think about it too, what's really cool is that our three like favorite or a couple of favorite guys ever, like a Bryce, a Jared Harper, now a Janai, they all got three rings, right? They each won a SC regular season, they each won an SC tournament, they all went to a Final Four. Like that's a really cool trifecta or a three thing to have there. And Charles had a more um, overall career, including the NBA, and he put Auburn on the map in terms of basketball. But in terms of a career at Auburn, I think like even the guys from the 2019 team like may even have more of an argument there from that perspective. But in terms of your whole basketball career, there's nothing like what Charles did in that sense.
everything's been building, man. Everything has been built. Like Charles put a brick down, and so did that Final Four team. So did that SEC championship team and Bruce's first SEC championship. So did Mustafa Heron. So did Austin. All these were bricks to get us to this point. But we can wax poetic all day, and we will continue to. But if
Wait,
we don't keep going,
wait, hang
we
on.
will not get through our list.
I want to read you guys some crazy numbers because
Okay.
while you have been waxing about Janai's stuff, I want to read you some of the numbers that he had this year. All right. He started off the season kind of pedestrian, right? Versus Vermont 12-7-2. They were clearly gearing up to stop the National Player of the Year. But then against Houston, the team, the game where we gave Todd Pettiford the MVP, 29-3. Against Duke, our first loss of the year in Cameron Indoor. Auburn playing in the ACC SEC Challenge against Almighty Duke, 20-12-3. That Ohio State game that Matt was talking about earlier, 21, 20, and 6. 21 points, 20 rebounds, 6
Crazy.
assists. I can't even wrap my head around that. Against LSU, 28 points, 16 rebounds. In the loss to Florida, 18, 11, and 6. Against Ole Miss, 20, 12, and 4. I mean, he
just rattled this off like, and we were so casual about. I mean, we tried our best to like. But we're not going to see anything like that for a while.
He missed 2 straight games against Mississippi State at home where we cruised because Miles Kelly was shooting really great, and then that close one on the road where Todd Pettiford took over against Georgia. The next time he came back and played against Georgia, all he did was drop 31, 14, and 4.
Oh, I forgot about that game.
He just like casually dropped these 2010 games. It was just kind of averaging 2010. And we were just like, yep, another 2010. Of course, that's how we get our wins. It's like an NBA stat line almost. 2010, 2010, over and over again.
I want to do the math because including the game against Georgia State where he injured his shoulder and went out after only scoring 2 points. The South Carolina game he got hurt late. There's no saying how much he would have pumped that up. But the South Carolina game he was 6-3-1 before he went out with that ankle injury. And those were two of his worst outputs of the season, including the 2 games that he didn't play. I want to go back in and see what his averages are for the year because he averaged 18.6 points, 10.8 rebounds, so nearly 19 points and 11 rebounds a game, 2.9 assists, and Jackson's favorite, 2.1 blocks per game. And that is including fully sitting out 2 games, sitting out most of a third, and missing at least a quarter of that South Carolina game.
Incredible. All
I
right, let's
mean,
keep pushing
just
through these Google Sheet things. We'll never make it. I know some of us are on a tighter schedule than others. I could talk all night, but new players we were most excited about. This is only new players. And here's our picks here. Jackson, JP Pegues, wah, wah, wah. Matt, Miles Kelly, Ben, Jaheim Hudson, Storman, Todd
oof.
Pettiford. So we're 2 of 4 here. 2 of 4. And we can talk briefly about it, but I picked JP Pegues, and I think we all wanted to pick JP Pegues. We just were trying, everybody else was going for a little more of a deep cut there. But JP Pegues, man, well, that was his last year of eligibility, I believe, or did we see he went to the transfer portal actually?
He's in the portal.
If we're not sure for, I think you might sue and see if he can do it or what the deal is. I feel so bad for him. We came to bring him in as a sniper or like a mercenary guy that was going to be our point guard that was going to lead the team, and it just didn't work out at all. He was a liability out there the entire time. Ben had Jaheim Hudson. I did think Jaheim Hudson might play a little more than he did. He did do some serviceable minutes for us, so shout out to that. That was nice. Matt had a great pick in Miles Kelly. I don't think anybody knew he was going to be quite the sharpshooter he ended up being, but man, that was a great pickup from Georgia Tech. And Storman had Todd Pettiford, and man, did he hit. We hit on so many great players this year.
Yeah, it's a testament to the coaching staff, and that's why I'm really excited. And I don't mean to get jump forward here, but we got some really good talent evaluators. Yes, we miss out on some dudes. We miss out on Chance Westry. We miss out on Yohan Traore. We miss out on JP Pegues, but we always hit on more than we miss out, right? In a collective way and in a team way, and finding guys that mesh well with the team. And, some could say Aiden Holloway was a potential miss in a sense, and that's a whole different story for a whole different day. But Tahad was like the perfect guy to plug into this type of team where it's a senior-led team. Off the court, they mesh so well. I've always been a big fan of East Coast guys, New York guards. Mustafa Heron was one of those guys. And they just bring a different toughness. You think about Rucker Park, you think about those guys in there just getting buckets, right? They when the lights come brightest, they shine the brightest. And we saw that immediately against Houston. And that's when, so I knew coming into this season that there was going to be a different player than Aiden Holloway. He's going to be a different player than most of the other guys because he just had that toughness and that I'm going to get a basket type of mentality. And that's why I chose Tahad at the beginning of the year because, I just knew he brought that. And I was very excited about what he could bring and also the dude just has bunnies, right? I go back and watch that Mississippi State windmill dunk twice a week because it was just absurd. A guy 5'10" doing that.
I think a great way to frame this, and we've been in the transfer era for a little bit now. Walker Kessler, transfer era, that was 4 years ago. So we've had some transfers. Who is the biggest hit we've had in transfer portal, and who is the biggest miss? Because I would argue that JP Pegues is by far the biggest miss we've had in the transfer portal this last 4 or 5 years since it started.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other guys that we brought in that were not freshmen that really didn't pan out. And he is far and away one of the biggest. I mean, when you consider how hyped he was coming out of the portal as the number one pick and roll point guard coming through, he'd won a tournament game back when he was at Furman, just scoring buckets left and right. We at the very least thought he would be a contributor. And I'll never forget late in the year against Texas A&M where Denver Jones is hurt and he's not going to play. And JP Pegues saw 0 minutes. And that's when you really knew that there is nothing that he can give this team. Because late in the year, Turtle Hudson, for all of his flaws, he was still getting rotations. Ja'Kai Howard still got a rotation or two from time to time. JP got absolutely nothing. Now, the fact
I
that
think
he's in
that
the
was a
portal,
personal choice. I
well,
think
now
that was
that
a choice on his part.
I think now that he's back in the portal again, I wonder because you remember he missed the shoot around at the beginning of the year with some kind of wrist injury. Like, did he have some medical problems? And when a medical red shirt became a possibility, or just a red shirt generally to sort of protect his health and protect his value, I think he probably made a business choice.
I think you might would have seen him in some last minute blowouts and things, but I don't think you would have seen him play again meaningful minutes after the like by SEC play. He was done
There was a
before that
point where
even.
he quit playing. He quit playing garbage time. There
Yeah,
was a point
Yeah.
where he was completely out of the rotation, and like Ben said, I don't think it was.
I think that was the red shirt idea. By the time
yeah.
he wasn't
I
playing
think
blowout minutes, but he was already done as a competitive player by SEC play. But he's by far the biggest because like I don't think we've had any other misses where we expected the guy to be a starter and then he just didn't play. I think this is about as bad as it gets miss wise, and it's kind of freaking insane that we had like the best Auburn team of all time with one of the biggest misses we've ever had, even
well,
in like high school recruiting wise. This is one of the biggest misses we've ever had.
just imagine though, you've got this team of veteran KG guys who've been in the program a long time, and you bring in these guys, and I would love to be a fly on the wall in those July August practices, right? Because the freshman shows up, Todd Pettiford, and by all accounts, like was challenging guys, like during practice, like with his attitude. And then you've got Miles Kelly, right, who blended into this team so seamlessly and bought in on both ends. And but then you've got Turtle and you've got JP and you like I just imagine or I imagine the team knows way sooner than we do, right? Like which guys are going to be reliable. But they clearly tried to give JP some runway to get him going, and it didn't work out. I can't think of anybody who was a bigger disappointment. I think Florida wanted him. Florida was after him in the portal,
He
so it's
was the
not
number
like
one
Auburn
point guard
was
in the portal,
Well,
right?
he
I
was
mean,
he
I
was
know
the
great.
number
he's
one. He was the number one point guard, but he was the number one what was considered a pick and roll point guard, which is why it made
Um,
sense for him to come here. The whole goal was to pair him with Broom and not need him to be so ball dominant. But I mean, God, I just remember watching that Duke game, and that was when we all knew because we said, all right, we've had Maui, we've seen him struggle. He's got to put it together, and he was just a deer in the headlights against that elite Duke competition. And that was when we all knew we are like, I think that's a wrap on the JP Big East experiment.
Matt wanted to be a fly on the wall at practice during the year. I wanted to be in a fly on the wall in that airplane fight. I want to know what went down on the airplane. Yeah, I thought that's where you were going. I wanted to know what Ja'Kai Howard and Shaheem Hudson what went down there. Maybe we'll never know, or maybe we'll know by like next week because the stories start coming out a little quicker when the transfer portal's going. The next thing we had on here was most excited versus most worrying at a conference game. Jackson had Duke and Richmond. I was scared of the Spiders there, but I think we learned that these little guys we
Wait,
had nothing to
wait,
be
Jackson,
scared of.
Jackson, wasn't the Richmond game where we had two of the greatest in-game dunks in Auburn basketball history?
Was it?
I think it was
Maybe
that
that's
Richmond
confirmed.
game.
That Ja'Kai Howard and
Yeah,
Todd Pettiford dunks. Oh man, we had
it
some
was
amazing
so
time. We
sick.
could just sit here all day long, just bringing up great moments from the year because we had so many of them. Matt picked Duke and Vermont. Ben picked Purdue and none, and Ben was by far the smartest one because clearly none was the right answer
I
because
had to
we
get
did
something
not.
right
We only
eventually.
lost one at a conference game, and it was at Duke. And Storm picked Purdue and Vermont. So many great games in that conference. It was exactly what I wanted out of the out of conference. We got all the big games. We got to see this special team early. Any other year, we would have been holding our breath saying, okay, yeah, they look amazing out there, but like, hey, they haven't beaten any of these great. We got to see it early. We got to celebrate like all year long. And part of what made this team great was probably because the iron sharpens iron. They went out there and did against great teams. So when we hit SEC play against these great teams, they had confidence. They knew they could do it. They knew what they needed to do.
You can
I
see
mean,
where our mindset was picking all these mid-major games that scared us. Vermont, Richmond, and we beat Vermont by 60 and Richmond by 40. I mean, this team,
We didn't know. We
they
just
didn't care
didn't
about.
know. We had no idea
Oh,
that it
I
was
know,
going to
I
be
know.
like, we knew we had a good team,
well,
but
hey,
not this kind of team.
I don't
Yeah.
know if Matt's had a chance to see that message that I sent, but John Rothstein had a fantastic tweet today talking about Auburn in 2023 against App State. I mean, look, this has been an Auburn thing because Bruce Pearl has scheduled a lot of dangerous games for us in the out of conference. But this year, the dangerous games required us to elevate. And as Dylan Cardwell once said, Bruce Pearl went out and got a bunch of killers, a bunch of guys who are not right in the head. And we watched every time that the competition elevated, we elevated our game. We watched it against Houston in that second game after Plaingate. We watched it against Ohio State and Atlanta, where we ran them out of the freaking gym. We watched it against Purdue, where we didn't even know if Janai Broom was going to play. That was another one we thought he might sit out because we already had a couple of quad one wins at that point. All he did against Purdue was come in and drop 23, 11, and 2 in that game in Birmingham against what we later learned was a Sweet 16 Purdue team. So Purdue was about as good as everybody thought they were going to be, and they couldn't keep it close against us.
So we'll have to bust through some more of these because we also have the SEC preview stuff. But predictions for MVP, 3-point percentage, and most jungle MVP. Or prediction for second highest score, 3-point percentage, and jungle MVP. Could someone look up second highest score? Is that easy for somebody to look up?
Yeah, hold on one second.
So for MVPs, this will be good here. We had Janai from me. Matt had Janai. Ben had Denver. And Storm had Janai. So only Ben missed on that one. But I think you were trying to give us a little something to talk about,
I tried to get the spice this year.
Second leading scorer, we had me with CBM, Matt with Denver, Ben with JP Pagee. So maybe you weren't. Maybe you were just terrible at this.
I'm bad at this.
Storman had Miles Kelly. And I think Matt put in the chat, or Ben put in the chat, that CBM did end up getting the second most points. Even though he didn't get that many MVPs this year, he was still a very solid guy that we needed for sure. And the last one that's really interesting was 3-point percentage, because we've had some years where that 3-point percentage was not great. And so we were kind of, we knew we got some shooters this year, but I don't think we knew we got this great of shooters. I picked 34%. Matt was the lowly one at 33%. You did not believe, Matt. Ben had 34, and Stormin was very predictive and very excited about this team, picked 36%. We ended the year and we fell out a little bit in the NCAA tournament. We fell out a little bit at the end of the year. So just imagine how great we were shooting when we ended the season at 36.8%. That is Jackson, just elite.
We fell off so hard that for the last 10 games of the season, we averaged 33%. Wow. And still finished at 36.8%. And quick fun fact, you want to know what the 2018-2019 team shot?
35.
7.6.
37, you said?
37.6, 2018-2019. That is how elite that team was at shooting. But we came the closest we've been in a long time to that level of shooting.
I mean, this team's a lot like that team if you added the best player in America at center and the best player of all time to that team. So shout out to that team for making the Final Four and getting hot, because this team we didn't struggle to get the Final Four, but like it was harder. It felt like they went on a run in that Final Four for sure.
Hey, real quick, while we're talking about numbers, you guys want me to throw some numbers at you really quick, and we can all take a guess at what they are?
Hit us.
32.4.
Is that somebody's 3-point percentage? Is that Janai's?
Matt, what's your guess?
I have no idea.
Ryan, you want to throw something out there?
No, Knicks just lost.
Ryan,
no.
32.4% is Dylan Cardwell's free throw percentage for the year.
Oh my God. Holy
Dude, it was
crap.
an immediate turnover every time we went to the line.
It's crazy how that we didn't just do more hack a Cardwell. I mean, we were talking about in the chats on the way down the stretch.
It started to almost happen. There were a couple of times late in games where teams tried to do it, and he got rid of the ball just in time.
I mean, yeah, it was bad on a level I don't think I've ever seen from a guy who was so valuable to a team. All right, 9.2.
Points per game for
turnovers a game.
Yeah, that's probably right.
That is correct. We averaged 9.2. We averaged under 10 turnovers a game for the year. That's pretty good by Matt. All right, 7.
7?
7.
Blocks.
Points Presley Patterson had.
That might be true. I don't know. I didn't look at Presley Patterson.
It is true. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. That's guys we had at 20-plus minutes. 5.
How many games Janai missed? That can't be right either.
No, it was 2.8 of games missed. 5 is the guys we had averaging 10-plus points.
Oh.
All right, last number, 74. And if you know me, you know what that number is.
Free throw percentage.
Free throw percentage. I always say if Auburn's going to be great, we got to shoot at least 75%. And
And what was it like having those guards like Miles and Denver and Tahad and Chad like shooting that well from the free throw line? That was
CBM almost was like he set the record for Auburn at least, right? And
yeah,
he
he's
was
no,
leading
he
the
set
country.
the SEC record too, conference
Oh.
record. That was an area where we absolutely peaked too early. Down the stretch, Tahad Pettiford was terrible at the line. You go back and look at that Florida game, Denver, CBM, and Miles all cost us at the charity stripe. It's one of those things that I just hate about college basketball, man. Guys can be so hot and cold from the free throw line, even more so than from deep. It was a good year for free throw shooting overall. We were really dragged down by the front court. Janai and Dylan were once again just atrocious from the line as fifth year seniors. I don't know what it's going to take for Bruce Pearl to get together a team of guys that can just hit free throws. But it's got to happen. It's got to happen at some point. I believe that it will. But I mean,
well, imagine where we would have been without Janai and Dylan's percentages. And we would have been 80,
I mean,
80 plus.
Their field goal percentage is absolutely incredible. But yeah, we had some guys that finished the year doing pretty well. I mean, Chad Baker finished at 88.8%, Todd Pettiford 80.4, Miles 90.9. Miles was the only guy that seemed like he really accelerated towards the end of the year. Denver slipped under 90% at the end of the year. That's how bad his free throw shooting was down the stretch. I think at one point Denver was shooting as high as 93% from the charity stripe. But Ike pointed this out in our SEC preview. The other problem for those guys is they just didn't get to the line enough. Chad Baker was kind of the only guy that really got to the line consistently and set the Auburn and SEC record at 51. And if I recall correctly, he blew past Wendell Green Jr.'s record of 23 consecutive made free throws. So he nearly doubled that.
Here's the next one we have on here on our list. Love the stats. Will we lose a game at home this year? That's where we were going into the SEC. We were wondering if we would lose a game at home this year. We ended up losing two to Florida.
Oh, cheer for that, Matt.
Losing two to Florida, our only bad loss at home in an overtime against the hated rivals across the state, Alabama. The Jackson said no, Matt said yes, Ryan said no, Ben said no, Ike said no. Scariest matchup, we had Jackson at Texas A&M, which freaking got us again, even though we were resting players and all that. Luckily, Buzz Williams, right? He's out of the league now, right? Great, thank God. It'll probably be somebody else that's got our number by next year, but just good to get him out of the league. Matt said Tennessee at home, which we pulled off with a Miles Kelly 3, which was good, but a good pick though. Ryan said Florida at home, which we lost. So if you want to know who's good, we're going to lose to, ask us. Ben said Janai versus Amari Williams rebounding. Is that right? Did I write that wrong somewhere? Oh, there it is. Texas A&M away is what Ben said. I mixed up the two fields there. So you got that one right. And Ike said Missouri, which I don't know. Ike, you're in the chat, but not a great pick. I mean, we were like, oh, okay. I think we dominated them, right?
Think about Missouri. Missouri put together a pretty decent run at the end of the year.
Good.
We dominated them, and then they turned around and they were one of the only teams to beat Florida at home this year. So Missouri was just a hot and cold team. The Texas
Ben, you did get it. You did get it wrong. It was Jamari versus Amari Williams. Janai versus Amari Williams. Come see, the next one's a different thing. So whatever you picked there, is that Mississippi State?
No, that's Kentucky.
Kentucky.
That's Kentucky game, which wound up not matter. That matchup did not matter at all.
And sorry, I got this mixed up too. Sorry, Ike. You picked at Georgia as your scariest game, which I think we dominated that one too, but still not as weird as Missouri.
No. That was
okay.
That was Tahad Hero Ball.
Oh yeah, we were missing Janai on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. The home game we dominated. Guess what Janai's stats were in that A&M game, by the way? It was a game where we were missing Denver
11
Jones.
points. 11 points.
Worse. 8, 7, and 3.
Wow. Is that his only game he had under double digits that he played the whole game?
No, he also had under double digits before against Kentucky.
Okay.
But that was another one of those games where the guards were shooting the lights out. That was a guards game all the way.
Games we were looking most forward to. Tennessee at home, and that was a great game. Low scoring, barn burner there. But man, when that Miles Kelly 3 went in, it felt like the weight of the world had come off our shoulders. Matt said Alabama at home. Great game as well. And overtime sucks that we lost. I feel like if we had more on the line, we might would have pulled it off. I think we kind of started slow in that one. Ryan said Auburn at UK. broke the freaking curse. We haven't even talked about that yet. Broke the curse, man. We just keep making history with Bruce Pearl.
And broke the broadcast.
Oh, I forgot. There's so many moments this year. This year was so long and beautiful. You could just, oh my goodness, the blue screen of death at Kentucky. They didn't want people to see it. They didn't want people to know the truth. And Ben picked Texas A&M away. That was not looking forward to that one. I don't think anybody was except for Ben. And Ike said Missouri, which he was just itching to get
Well,
an
hey,
SEC play there.
what did I tell you about that Texas A&M game though? You can go back and listen to it. I said if we're going to be a serious title contender, it's going to come down to how we play on the road late in the year. And that was a game we were trying to win. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care the fact that we had the SEC regular season locked up. The effort and the things that we saw that cost us in that game were what cost us in the SEC tournament, and they were what cost us again against Florida. Now, granted, we still had a great year. We still won the regular season. But I think what we saw in that game was a lot of why we didn't quite make it to the national championship.
We had on here what will cause us to lose the SEC, and we don't even have to look at it because we won the freaking SEC. So who gives a crap about that one? The next one, the two other ones that are a lot of fun are what will make you happy and hot takes. Let's do hot takes, and then we'll do what made us happy because I think we're very happy. Hot takes for me, Ja'Kai Howard wins us a game and MVP. He did end up winning an MVP, right?
Wait, who? Ja'Kai?
Ja'Kai Howard
Yeah.
won MVP. All right, I got at least one of those right. I said Ja'Kai Howard would win us a game. I guess if you win MVP, you won us a game, in my opinion. So I got that one right. I thought I didn't get that one right, but hey, even post airplane fight, he still did something. Matt refuses to give hot takes. Classic thing Matt refuses to do. Ryan says we lose only 2 games. Is that right? Through SEC play, we only lost 2 games, right? Or I guess we lost
No,
three
we
by the
lost
end
3.
of the SEC.
And technically
Close,
4 if
Ryan.
you include the tournament.
And Ben said I
I
forgot we
just-
were tracking this for a minute. Pettiford misses 4 total free throws in all the SEC. I forgot he missed 4 within like 3 games or something
No,
like
no.
that.
He held on to it. He held on to it for a while, but I think we were like maybe a third of the way through SEC play, and he'd missed like 6 or 7.
What would we do without Ben's stuff? Because like you've predicted some Nostradamus level stuff. That's right, but you've also picked some insane stuff like Pettiford only missing 4 free throws, which
Well, I'm here for the content, man. I'm here to
it
have fun.
it makes for some
Matt's
great
the stats
content.
guy.
So okay, and then now the last one is what will make us happy, and I think we all ended up happy here, guys. Jackson said win 2 of 3 rings, a regular season, a tournament, and the Final Four. And I said, yep, we won regular season and the Final Four, the 2 biggest ones. Screw the tournament when you win those 2, especially so you'd love all 3. But Matt said 1 SEC ring, a second weekend, and a number 1 seed. Did we get it, Matt? Are you feeling
Got it.
happy?
3 for 3.
Super happy.
Let's see what Ryan said. Oh no, actually, Ryan's the only one that will not be happy this year, and he'll never be happy potentially. He shoots too high. He said, "Gotta win a national championship." Are you still happy though, Ryan, or was that actually too high?
I am, but that's why I was so crushed walking the Riverwalk after the game, grabbing a couple of frozen margaritas.
I feel like I'm sure
was
we were
feeling
fighting you on
couple of
this. That
frozen
like
margaritas
surely
and some
you will
big
be
San
happy at the end of
Antonio
the year
women.
if we win a SEC regular season and a Final Four, and you're like, "Oh, just the national championship."
but dude, we were so close, and that's what we all know how I was trying to explain to my Northeastern brother-in-law who's an NFL guy. He doesn't watch college basketball. And he's like, wow, there's 68 teams in a single elimination. I'm like, yes, that's why it's so hard to get to a Final Four because it's impossible. It really is. It's so hard to win that championship in college basketball. And this was like one of our best shots, the best shot honestly ever. And that's why I thought coming in, I was like, if there's going to be a year, it's got to be this year. I mean, obviously, there's so many variables moving forward now. You might strike, you might hit lightning once every now and then, but like in terms of the players we had, the dynamic, the pieces, it was now or never. And we just ran into another team that had the now or never at the same time.
Hey, Jackson,
4
I don't think
teams,
you
honestly.
mentioned this at the top. This is only the second time in history that all 4 number 1 seeds made it to the Final Four. This is the first time in history that the SEC has been the best conference in all of college basketball. And it may have been the best conference in the history of college basketball It sucks so hard that our best team had to run through the best SEC ever and probably one of the best, most chalky March Madnesses ever. I mean, Florida was this close to blowing it against Texas Tech. They were this close to blowing it against UConn. And they were just such a matchup nightmare for us that
Yeah,
you can't
we
help
didn't get
but
a
wonder.
single help there. No upsets that we got to play. No 15 seeds or 10
No
seeds late
A&M.
in the tournament. Yeah.
We did
So
We
dodge.
got to avoid Texas A&M.
We did
that's
dodge
good.
A&M, but Michigan was the higher seed. Michigan was the 4 and A&M was the 5.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have that backwards?
Yep.
All
Oh,
right, so we got one game. The most mild of upsets.
And we
The
didn't have
five
to
of the
play
4 years.
Louisville in Kentucky. We
Well,
didn't
that
have
was
we got
screwing us over. They were trying to
Yeah.
screw us over on that.
Well,
That
we
should
might
have
have
never
beaten them by
happened.
30, honestly.
we might I know.
Yeah.
look, the way we played against Creighton, man. Holy cow, that second half we were
And
something else.
what's wrong with us, man? I said before this, I just assumed we did everything that would make us happy this year. Both Ryan and Ben, y'all start crying or something because you're not happy apparently. And get this right next year, I guess, because y'all aren't crying enough on here because y'all shouldn't be happy because
Hey,
Ben's
If you follow our Twitter feed, you know exactly how unhappy I was the last 3 weeks of the season, man. Because I could feel it slipping away. I could feel it.
Well,
We had been
you wanted the double eagle, SEC regular season, SEC tourney, and you didn't get that. So me and Matt can be happy and leave this season on top, but you Ryan and Ben got to cry a little bit.
That's why Ryan and Ben have to continue the podcast. That's our punishment for this
hey,
past year. But look,
I'm not gonna
I'm
lie.
gonna,
There were tears shed in San Antonio as well as most of the Auburn section. I mean,
Uh,
after
yeah.
the game, when
Well,
they all
Ryan's right. Ryan said it earlier. We just don't know when we're gonna have a team that's this good and this capable ever again. I mean, Matt was the person in the group that saw it that second week that said there's not a team in the country that we can't step on the floor with and beat. The question was always just can we put it all together? Can the guys not pick up that second foul a little too early? Can we hit the front end of a 1-and-1 late? It's just the thing that we love about college basketball. And there were a lot of people complaining about how chalky this tournament was, but everybody that loves the sport realized that we got to the Sweet 16 once again with I think 13 of the 16 top Ken Palm teams at the end of the year. I mean, there was nothing but good basketball teams left, and we had nothing but good basketball games the whole way. I mean, Duke had and Texas Tech in the Elite Eight had a pretty bad choke fest, but when you think about the good basketball that we saw at the end of this year, it was incredible. And when you're playing those good competitive basketball games, you get beat at the margins. You get beat on who got the big rebound late. You get beat on who can make their freaking free throws. You get beat on who can get an inbounds pass into the game. I mean, we saw teams get beat because they couldn't stop an inbound pass under the basket. That was what happened to Purdue against Houston, and Houston went on from that to win the national champ or to play in the national championship game. They did that on one play under the basket against Purdue. That's the
That's
margins of victory and defeat in these great, great basketball
We
games.
we played great team at the end, and we had an injured star, and that's just how it is,
and
like
Miles Kelly hits that three 8 out of 10 times in
they had
transition.
an unbelievable dude that could hit a fadeaway three in everyone's face while our biggest star was injured, and that's March Madness for you. And you just got to keep punching that ticket. That's why me and Matt had talked about in our first year about if you can get there 4 years in a row, you're in elite territory. Only like 16 teams usually have made it the last 4 years in a row. Usually you kind of have an off year every 4 or 5 years. Even the most elite programs, even the Dukes and North Carolinas and the Blue Bloods have an off year every 4 or 5 years and don't make it. So the fact that we made it 4 years in a row, we got upset when we were the number 2 seed. We didn't make two times now we've gotten upset as the number 2 seed. And we made it as the number 1 seed overall. So that's just you just got to keep punching that ticket.
And you think about what Matt was talking about. One of the things that would make him happy is being that second weekend team. Creighton's been a second weekend team for almost 3 years in a row. So you talked about dodging having to play Louisville in Lexington, Kentucky. Our fight to go to the Sweet 16 was against a team that has lived in the second weekend.
Yeah, can we talk about like the obviously the ending was hard, but if you zoom out and now we've had some time, getting out of the first weekend was like essential. And I think we all felt the pressure in that second round. We knew it was going to be a hard game. By the way, we could have been having to play UConn. We could have been having to play Gonzaga. Like it's just hard. Something about that 1-8-9 matchup is just tricky. Um, So kudos to us but Bruce needed that. I mean, Bruce had only been past the first weekend once for all the great things he's done for Auburn basketball. So I think getting to a second Final Four legitimizes him more in the sport, in a sport that constantly shuns him for reasons that are ridiculous. That he is a legitimately one of the best coaches in America. So that's huge. But guys, I was pretty annoyed that Alabama made the Final Four last year for the first time. I'm super glad that we pulled back ahead of Alabama both in SEC championships and in Final Fours. It's super annoying how good they are, but it brings out kind of the bet. Like I'm glad we accomplished some things there. Tennessee didn't make the Final Four, still has never made it. So a lot of our peers, Florida wins another natty, like good for them. Todd Golden's great. Obviously, there's history there with Auburn and him. But it's a year where it continues to legitimize like that this Auburn thing is not a flash in the pan. We're on year 7 since that first SEC championship, and Pablo had a great post about like all the seasons past that have been really good and the doubts he might have had back then, like the doubts after 2018 or after the Final Four team. Like, could we ever do that again? After the Jabari team went out early, like, would we ever see a more so even though I'm kind of like, I can't imagine seeing a team better than this one, more built to like an incredible year.
You're starting to
This
see it.
staff, man,
You're
this
starting to
staff,
see
man,
it.
you never know.
You're starting
Yeah,
to see
damn,
it.
you getting my hopes
There it
up
is.
here.
It's back. He never left, but he's back.
Here's the other one. So people look back on these great teams, no matter what sport, especially I mean basketball too. We look back on the number one seed year in 1999, 1998 with the Flying Tigers. We go back and we watch those highlights of that Ole Miss game where they just poured it on them for like 8 possessions in a row or something like that. And we say there's somebody great like that, oh, just go back and watch that highlight. Which game or which like section of a game are you guys gonna send backwards to people? Like the other Final Four team, like when they passed up that open drive to throw it at a Bryce Brown to hit that three in the SEC tournament championship game against Tennessee. That's the kind of stuff we go back and look at. Or that North Carolina game where we just ran them out of the building in the March Madness. Or the Kentucky game when Horace Spencer, with the game on the line, shot that three. Those kind of plays that we go back and we rewatch over and over again. What are going to be the plays this year? What are going to be the games this year?
I've got two, and I don't want to steal Matt's, so I'm gonna say my first one is the opening against Michigan State in the Elite Eight when we go up, I believe, 20-8 against them on an 18-point kill shot where Tom Izzo, for all of his basketball IQ, did that old school coach thing where he said, "I'm going to let him work it out on the court." And boy, did he let that game get away from them because it was an 18-0 kill shot run. Michigan State never recovered. You're never going to see a game like that where there's such elite competition where one team is just running another team off the floor. And we did it by feeding number 4. We were playing inside out basketball. We looked dominant. We got all the looks we wanted. But even more than that, we got all the stops we wanted. They were never comfortable in the shot clock. And that to me is an encapsulation of just how tough and talented this team was on both ends of the floor.
Who's got the next one?
The obvious one we already mentioned is Janai coming out of the locker room to send us to a Final Four and hitting that shot. I think that'll be the iconic kind of moment. But don't forget, Janai had for all the great things we've had, we haven't had a lot of buzzer beaters. Janai had a tip-in buzzer beater in Maui. Like, don't forget that was a crazy moment. We haven't talked about like that was awesome. And then how about a Tahad stretch against Michigan was unbelievable. Like, that's one of those few moments where I've just never seen a guy take over quite like that. And obviously, going against Trey with what was on the line, like that was a really and then number 1 versus number 2, right? Jackson, you've talked about that Bruce Pearl Tennessee team that made it to number 1. They played Memphis in the 1 versus 2 game, in-state rivalry. They lost the next game. He always likes to joke they lost the next game, but for that moment, Tennessee had arrived in college basketball, and that team, I believe, made the Elite Eight, the only Elite Eight Tennessee had made until a year or two ago. So I think Auburn having that moment for the SEC history of number one in Tuscaloosa to go in there. We have not won very often in Tuscaloosa, even in basketball, even as good as we've been. That I think is a moment that everybody will go back and enjoy.
I mean, hopefully there's some kids like me that watch that number one versus number two, Auburn versus Alabama in Coleman, and Auburn pulls it off. That was peak us this year, I think. I think we peaked at that moment. Maybe because the other pick I would pick, and I'm picking games more than like moments. Yeah, the other game I would pick is Kentucky breaking the curse, Miles Kelly going off for 30 points, can't miss in Lexington, the crazy blue screen, all that stuff. But I remember that Tennessee Memphis game as a kid and just being like, oh my goodness, like oh, like the biggest stage, oh, and in-state rivals going at each other, number one versus number two, Calipari and Bruce Pearl, the guy that paints his chest and goes crazy. Like it was like as cool as college basketball gets during the regular season, you know. So I'm hoping some kids see the same thing for Auburn, Alabama. I think that'll be the game I point people back to as like we were peak then. We were running full like against the number two team in the nation in their house. We still pulled out that win. Like it's insane.
You realize how crazy it is that a guy like Bruce Pearl has done that at two schools like Tennessee and Auburn? Like, can
Crazy.
anyone outside of the Auburn sphere do a special? He got some credit this year from the national media more than he probably ever has gotten. I just don't know if people understand how hard that is to do, not just once at a school that's not historically good at basketball, but twice
Meanwhile,
in this.
meanwhile, they love Rick Pitino. They just love Rick Pitino. He got in trouble. He went to all these different schools, and they love it. They love it. But Bruce Pearl does it, and they don't care at all. They. In fact, they want to write bad stories about him every time he does something. Every time he peeks his head up to the elites of college basketball, they want to tear him down. Meanwhile, slick Rick Pitino, they just absolutely love his comeback story.
It needs to be said too. We haven't said this. This year's team, while it is our greatest one ever, and they had one of the best seasons in college basketball history, they were not the most talented group. And I think you have to like it's annoying, but there is a reality that Bruce and this staff is not getting the same level of overall talent as a lot of these teams were beating. And I think people are getting a little accustomed to the fact that we win so much in our fan base. Like, don't forget that the makeup of this roster, there's like maybe one NBA player, maybe and it's a bunch of great college basketball players with a great staff. I don't think you can praise the staff enough for what they've done all these years, but especially this year, it was truly like an amazing coaching job in all by all accounts.
Ryan, what's your moment? What's your game?
Mine was going to be Iowa State. That second half comeback was probably the most eye-opening experience, and like just the late night call on ESPN, the moment where it's like, man, I don't know if this team really's got it. And then we fought back, we hit big shots, we got in the game against a high quality opponent. And even like the Memphis game, that first half against the Memphis game, we were so dominant. Um, that was such a good, look back. But I mean, look, even like that home wins against Mississippi State, who's a quality tournament team. Ole Miss, who obviously went to Sweet 16, probably should have won the Elite Eight at home, where we won by 30 plus. We scored 102 points against them at home.
They're
Um,
bad.
that was that was a game. I mean, you have all the obviously the other games y'all said, but going outside the realm there, that was probably Iowa State, Mississippi State at home, Ole Miss at home are
And
two.
Ryan, you talked about this earlier too. I mean, some of those games that we thought might be trap games. Vermont, a team that's made the dance several years running. Richmond, a team that is always competitive in the A10. We beat them by 40 and 60 points. I mean, that's what Duke and UConn do to their cupcakes. They don't play with their food, as Shooty Hoops will would always say.
We
Can
just
I
had
throw another moment out there that we haven't talked about yet? Um, just this overall trend. I was at the Purdue game. Granted, Birmingham, unbelievable Auburn crowd, right? Ryan, you were not at the Sweet 16 or Elite Eight, right? In Atlanta. I've heard from people that were there that that was peak Auburn fan experience in any sport. What Auburn did in that environment, which is in Atlanta, fair enough. What about going to Duke and Duke having to send emails to their season ticket holders,
No, I
not
was there. No,
to
I
let
was
them?
there.
And Ryan was in Cameron
Can you
Indoor.
believe
So
it? You got to go to Cameron Indoor and the Final Four in 1 year. It's insane, man. And you got to watch us lose both times, but still.
That's why I'm done. That's why I'm done going anywhere because my away neutral site record is probably 5-27.
But you did it, man. Bucket list.
Yeah.
Absolute bucket list, man. Like, I know not like going to national championship you win, but you can't. That's not a bucket list. You can't like predict that, but you can bucket list Final Four and going to see your team playing Cameron Indoor. That is just absolutely and against Janai Broom versus Cooper Flag in the Final Four. What would have been a two Final Four teams? Like, oh my
And
goodness! Like
both guys had 20 and 10. Miles Kelly went off that game. I think he was 5 for 7 from deep. We started that game up, I think 16 to 6 at one point. We had a 10-point lead in that first half.
Oh
We
no,
were all feeling it.
it was 13-2, and then Shire called a timeout, and that was probably a top 10 Auburn moment in my life when you got a bunch of people who flooded. I mean, we all know Auburn fans, right? They treat everything as a football game. The hotel next to the Cameron Indoor Arena.
Do we have the beep button? Does anybody have the buzz button? I feel like I heard a cuss word. We're gonna have to mark this thing explicit.
Sorry,
Holy crap.
everyone
We almost
everyone
made it
thought
the
it
whole
everyone
year.
thought it was an away, game for the other sport, which they treated it by the way in San Antonio as well too. But the everyone took over the bar. I mean, they had a great time before the Duke game, flooded in. Duke fans probably getting off their Zoom calls, CEOs, etc. We're rowdy, we're excited to be there, and so we go on a 13-2 run to start the game, and they're just hooting and hollering, body getters everywhere. That was probably a top 10 like sporting moments for Auburn ever, just in that environment. They're all looking around like who are these folks here? We've never had this many people in our arena
yeah,
ever. They said, we had the most fans there. Arizona last year was like a close second, then like NC State fans or whatever. But they pride themselves on keeping fan bases out, right? Because it's such an intimate environment. You get shamed on if you sell your tickets. So the fact that, I mean, they all cashed, they all probably pay for their season tickets by selling to Auburn fans, but still, I mean, it was incredible. I will never forget that
The next
moment.
time you're like having a moment in your life, you feel a little unlucky or you're getting a cavity drilled or something. Just remember, you're the kind of guy that's gone to Cameron Indoor and watched Auburn play at Duke against Cooper Flag, and you've been to a Final Four. Like insane, insane stuff.
the fan support was my point. I mean,
Yeah.
easy to follow a winner, but to see, I think all of us on this podcast, anybody who's been following Auburn basketball for a long time, it is not lost on any of us. If you go listen to all of our podcasts, we always talk about the road fans. It was not that long ago. It was less than a decade ago while Bruce Pearl was here. You never had people traveling for Auburn basketball games. You just
Facts.
didn't. And to see what it is now, and this year I felt like the national acclaim was there. Everybody noticed how much this has been happening for a couple of years, but the attention was there. And I just think the fan base just fell in love with this team and this program and has for the last few years. It's
I
just
mean,
those moments
We
were
had the
amazing.
most fans in San Antonio.
Jackson,
Yeah.
think about being in Barclays last year, right? Or I guess that was 2 years ago now. Being in Barclays, like New York's a desirable destination in the same way that Honolulu is, especially for basketball heads. And I mean, there were not that many Auburn basketball fans there. We were hanging with Jalen Williams' family. That's how few
It was
fans are
pretty.
there.
It was all right. It was all right. But yeah, it could have been more for sure. But the competition wasn't great in Barclays. But
No, that's true.
Ryan, I guess this is a good time to wrap up the show a bit and talk about Final Four experiences. You said we were the top fan base in San Antonio because we were not in the time I went in 2019 Final Four. I mean, it was a bit of a surprise that people weren't planning around it the same way they are now. But in Minneapolis, we were probably fourth place. It was close. It was close. We had Virginia, Michigan State, and Texas Tech. The only thing only fan base that I was upset that we weren't beating was Texas Tech. Those other two, Virginia had been good for so many years in a row at that point, and they were breaking through finally after losing 16 seed before. Michigan State, of course, is going to have a ton of fans there, and they're in the Northeast. Texas Tech had a little more fans than us, but man, it was a great experience. But I don't know if you want to compare, like what did you think?
I mean, I will start off by saying I'm so glad I went. It was, I went because I never thought, so I kicked myself for not going to 2019, even though hindsight looking back, it was like, man, glad I wasn't there because how brutal must that have been to lose that game and be in person. Um, but I just knew I was like, it's so hard to get here. Like with the ever changing landscape of college basketball, you never know what NIL is going to look for the team. Like next year, we have no idea who's even going to be our team. So I was like, you know what? I'm doing it. I'm going. Found someone to split costs with me, which helped out because it was like ridiculous. Um, but Auburn fans, like I think, understood that moment as well too, and people drove, like people flocked, and there were much more different ways you can get San Antonio than you can get to Minneapolis. Like there's flying into Houston, there's flying into Austin, Dallas. Like you could drive after flying into there. Um, and it's like, sorry, I'm gonna say the word. It's like football. Like people find out a way to
No.
get there. My bad. It's like people find out a way to get there, and they want to experience a party. San Antonio is a much more desirable place, I think, Minneapolis, right? You hear the Riverwalk, you hear the stuff. So people flocked there. And over the years, Auburn has gotten a lot of their student population from the state of Texas. Like a lot of
And
students
Matt's
come.
got some Texas roots there too.
Yeah, there's a big Texas following from Houston, from Dallas. So people just went home and then went with their families. Like it was nuts. But the Alumni Association and whoever did a really good job of putting on pre-event things. Like there was a an Alumni Association tailgate event at this place called Texas Sky Bar, of course, in honor of the Sky Bar here at Auburn. Uh, and there was probably 3 to 4 thousand Auburn fans there that it was just for Auburn fans. You had to pay, but it was all you can eat, drink, etc. And that was probably the highlight of the trip is because it was just nothing but Auburn fans. And it was like, wow, this is surreal. Like, I didn't think there was that many people here. But I think my expectations of the Final Four were a little too high because it did not meet it in the sense of like the viewing experience of the game wasn't great. Like
You're
I didn't
so
hear the
far
whistle.
away. You're so
I
far
didn't,
away.
and I was in the lower bowl.
I was way up in the tippity top. I was like ranting online during the game about how terrible of a watching experience it was. I was at the tippity top, and then I was like, okay, well they have this huge jumbotron that you can watch, and okay, at least I could see on kind of jumbotron. I'd be like kind of watching it, like I could see him down there, but I couldn't even tell if Austin Wiley or Horace Spencer was in. That's how far away I was. And then
Yeah.
every possession, they would turn the jumbotron off because it would like distract
Yeah.
the players instead of the little jumbotron a basketball stadium we usually have, and you can't tell what was going on there. And I was like, oh my goodness, I paid so much money to not even really see the game at all. But it
Yeah.
was still cool. I'm so glad I went. But
Yes, I could see the game. Like I definitely could see the game, but I never heard the whistle. I never heard the bands. I'm still in the lower bowl, but I'm towards the back, and so you're still so far away. And they also never showed replays in the arena. They
mm,
showed very few. So anytime the ball they went to look at a replay for an out of bounds or a foul or whatever, like the flagrant foul on Denver Jones, never saw the replay of that. Like the viewing experience of that was just not great. Um, but man, that first half when we were going on that run, like man, it was the Auburn section I was sitting in was loud. Um, they also hosted outside the arena concerts of big artists like Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, 305.
Pitbull was there.
Pitbull was there,
Holy
Jelly
crap!
Roll, Chris Stapleton, and so
No,
the
that's some
cheer.
big names. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't.
was it
We
was a
didn't have that
free
in
event.
Minneapolis. I'll tell you what.
It was a free event. So the whole Tri-County area of San Antonio, the locals flock down there because I guess they never have a lot of stuff or something to do. So just the sheer amount of people in that area, like for the weekend and then after the game, because the concert
Was
was
it
also
tough?
in
Was it
between.
tough because the ladies there are so big? Because the churros, and then they like take up double space.
Number
Or
one, I got churros because I wanted to see.
okay,
They were legit.
you would get pretty big if you lived there too. You think?
I think so.
Oh
And
yeah,
All
then,
right, all
you
right.
got some queso. Some good Texas queso. So, Mark, you
dude,
mentioned
I
frozen
got
yam.
I got a lot. That part of it was definitely worth it. Um, I also hate playing first because I didn't stay for the second game because like,
That's the whole thing that made me feel better. That's crazy. You didn't see
but
the second
nah, dude,
game?
it might have been. I don't know if it was different, but like, I did not want to be there after
You didn't want to be
losing.
there. I was there for the foul on the three-pointer against
Well,
Virginia, the double dribble.
I mean,
The
good
only
point.
thing
But
that could
listen,
soothe
I
me
would
was
have
that I
given
got to watch.
anything. I would
the
have
I got to
given
watch.
anything to watch Duke fumble that game. Oh my god.
but
It was an
okay, so
amazing
the
game too. All
concession,
right, Ryan, your whole you messed up the whole thing. I don't want to
all right,
hear that
all
you
right.
didn't
Here's my
like.
reason why I left at
That's the
halftime.
coolest thing at the Final Four is that you get the two best games in America, the two biggest games of the year, the Final Four games, and you get to watch it with the other people's fan bases and everybody's mixing together.
Let me explain why I left at halftime of the Duke game. The concession stand prices were the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my entire life. A bottle of water was $8, a pretzel was 14, a beer was $22. I
That's
was
about normal
not,
for New York City, I think.
yeah, but I was starving. I knew I could go walk out of the stadium, go a block down, get a basket of chips and queso and salsa, a frozen margarita, maybe some steak frites, if
And
you
you
will.
can do all that for $5 and miss one of the best comebacks in
Hey, but
college
look, what was
basketball
fun
Final Four
was
history.
you're right, but what was fun was I was doing that and we were sitting there was a lot of sad Auburn fans because I don't know if I thankfully left on Sunday because I had a flight booked Sunday and I was like, if we stay, I'll extend. If we win, I'll extend. A lot of Auburn fans had to stay till Tuesday. A lot of sad Auburn fans. A lot of sad Auburn fans. And
There's
so
only
they
so
were all
many
eager
churros you can
stars
eat, you
away.
know. Only
That's
so many
that's one of the hard
churros.
parts about the Final Four is you don't know if you're playing Monday or not.
I just figured I would be happy to pay the price if so like when I went to Minneapolis. Minneapolis should not host these
So you
events.
just hung out in the Mall of
It
America?
was not good for this. Like I think my overall experience is probably worse than yours, but but the
Probably.
basketball kind of made up for it. Minneapolis is just too small of a city for the Final Four. Honestly, they had built this new whole stadium, the new Viking Stadium. Very nice, very cool stadium, but it was like brand new. That's why they got it. Or whatever. But Minneapolis is not a big city. It is a small city, honestly. And so the flights were tough to get at the moment because there was just not enough flights going from New York City to Minneapolis at the time. The tickets were tough to get. I had to stay, I had to like refresh Airbnb over and over again because all the hotels were completely booked because we had won that game like late on a Sunday against Kentucky. So we were like the last fan base that could purchase stuff. I had to stay in a random room, like not like an entire place Airbnb, like staying in someone's house with shared rooms. And there was three shared rooms with different people from different fan bases there. I never saw the other two at all. They were like but she had opened that room up. She had never rented that room before. But she was like, there's so much demand and no one has it that she like cleaned out a back room for me to stay in. That's how desperate I was to find a room. Then on top of all of this, I booked my tickets as quick as I could after the game, assuming that someone like Ben or Matt or Ryan would just happen to be there. Like there's been other sporting events in Auburn history that I've done that as well. And ends up, so many friends are there. Some people are ready to split a hotel or whatever. Because I was the only person I knew. I mean, I went to Auburn University for 4 years. I'm a huge sports fan. I've gone to other big games, all this sort of stuff. Not a single soul I knew went to that Final Four in Minneapolis. Luckily, on Reddit, I found a friend. I think his name was Andy. It's been a while. Guy from Oregon that actually flew in. Made friends with a guy. Hung out with him most of the time. Went to the Tiger Walk in the place. Minneapolis, way
Dude,
too
the
small.
Tiger Walk in San Antonio was absolutely nuts.
It was not nuts in
Nuts.
Minneapolis. It was good in
This
Minneapolis.
is
But they did a
nuts.
little hotel thing because they had like a team hotel. And so we did the Final Four or the Tiger Walk there. Luckily, I got to walk through Tiger Walk because I had last drink too late and like barely got in front of the team before they went through. And then I had to go through the entire Tiger Walk, like high fiving everyone. So that was kind of fun. Game, was the iconic double dribble game. So that was a whole thing, even from way up in the top corner. In fact, I'll tell you this one. I thought we'd won the game. He shot that three. He missed it. Like he's like Ryan said, you can't hear the whistle. Definitely not from where
Can't
I
hear the
was sitting, where
whistle.
you're gonna hear the whistle. So all the Auburn guys up in the top section, which was mostly Auburn guys where I was. He missed that three. We were crying, we were hugging, we were jumping up and down, all this stuff. We thought we'd won the game for a solid like 60 seconds a minute. Like it's a long time to think you have won and you're going to the national championship just to watch the Virginia guys line up for free throws and hit those three free throws in a row. I mean, I had a migraine afterwards from how upset I was and yelling at like I can't believe this happened. Oh my god. Like, oh my god. The only thing that soothed it was that I went down to the lower bowl and watched Texas Tech punch their ticket against Michigan State to the national championship. I high-fived Patrick Mahomes, who was there in the stadium. That was really interesting, and that was a cool experience. And by the end of the two games, I had found the slightest bit of peace. And then I said, I gotta go like see what's going on in Memphis. I gotta go drown my sorrows a bit and drink. And then it got real weird. I went to a goth bar. They have several goth bars
This is going
in
off the rails.
Minneapolis. And so I went to like one goth bar and
F
I
in the
couldn't get
chat.
in. I couldn't get into the goth bar because
GG's.
it was a Depeche Mode cover
Here
band.
you
It
were
was
going
sold
to a
out.
goth bar, and I was sitting in a restaurant, and Chris Beard sat next to me.
Chris Beard.
What? No
Did you punch,
way.
punch him in the face? Anyways, Chris.
Well,
So I went to
almost-
got
No,
went
but
to
Chris
Depeche Mode.
leaned over to Ryan and said, Ryan, A&M's offering me all this money. Should I go or should I stay at Ole Miss? Ryan said, you know what,
Dude.
Chris?
the coaches that were just like walking around, like they had
Everybody's
nothing
there.
else. Yeah, like Mark Pope, Chris Beard, like all these guys were just like going to regular restaurants and just like hanging out and sitting down. But yeah, according to Pocket Watch, Jackson Garrett is goth. Who would have thought?
I do some goth stuff. I do. I've been
Oh,
known to
yes,
goth.
we know.
In fact, I watched this year's Final Four in a Berlin club. So that was really interesting. It was like 2 a.m. in the club in Berlin. I was like in the back corner getting made fun of for watching my college basketball team because no one knew what I was talking about there. Anyways, back to the story. Went
You
to
weren't
the Depeche
talking
Mode
about
bar.
Borussia
Couldn't get
Dortmund,
in.
so what did it matter?
I went to the Frankfurt Einhard game, by the way. So I'm a Frankfurt fan, actually. But so then I went to goth club, couldn't get in. Went to different goth club because they have two. Went to the other goth club, made friends with this guy. It was his birthday. So then he took me to a goth club. There's a third one that plays like goth, like dancing music. That was a bizarre place. Guy had a top hat, got really mad at me for having a beer on the dance floor. So we got out of there. We went to get like late night food at like 4 a.m. It was this guy's birthday. I bought him a food and I realized I'd already bought his drinks, his Uber, and his food. I was like, I think you're just using me for all these foods. But I didn't know anybody in Minneapolis and stayed up to like 4 a.m. Next day, went and listened to Purple Rain, went to museum, did some Prince stuff. But overall, the good part was the basketball. Everything else was not that great, but it was still a bucket list event to kind of like experience four different fan bases having the best moment of their college basketball lives, like in the coolest place you could possibly be in America on that day with the entire country watching those games. So it's definitely still like a bucket. I've won the Stanley Cup. I've been to the other sports national championship twice. I've been to the Final Four. Like all those are like on a similar equal footing of awesome event.
I think my experience was different because you had 4 1 seeds that all expected to win. Whereas,
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
maybe in your experience, it was like, man, we're just happy to be here. Type
I mean,
of thing. Maybe Virginia was a little
It
different.
was like crazy up and down because we were on that run, man. And then I thought we had punched a ticket national championship. The highs and lows of thinking you did that, and then watching that
But
guy
I get what you're
hit
saying
three free
because
throws.
when you're watching the game in the arena, like all of a sudden play just stops and you don't know, like you're like, what, and you see a guy's like hand come in and he's like this, like calling a foul.
It
And
builds
like you just don't know.
It builds a definite aura for the event to have that big of a stadium with four
It's
different
jarring
fan
when you walk
bases,
in. It's
and it
jarring.
feels big. It feels like out of a movie or something, and like the court's kind of far away. You feel like you're in like the old
It's a
Roman
surreal
Colosseum.
experience.
Yeah,
It's
it's like
surreal.
feels like you're like in the Roman Colosseum back in the day, and you feel like the world's eyes upon this event. And they do a good job with like the preparations and the concerts and all this stuff, but like the actual game watching experience, you're not used to it. And in a different sport, you've kind of gotten used to where the lines are and different things if you don't hear the stuff. And even then, they've adjusted to talking to their fans and how to do it. And college basketball in the Final Four is not adjusted because they only do it once a year or whatever to like how you would
Yeah.
communicate to a fan base that large because they're just most of their viewers are on thing. They're just not used to it. But
My wife was almost like, so moving forward, should we just go to Sweet 16 Elite Eight? I'm like, for a basketball watching experience, yeah, probably. Because like that experience in Atlanta that people had was probably, in terms of like an Auburn like winning experience, was probably like top 3 moments of those people's.
I might say once you've done
I
the
was
bucket list Final Four, if you're in the Final Four again, if you've already done the Final Four before, like I have and Ryan has, do it if you can do it. But
I probably won't
otherwise,
do it again.
I wouldn't do Final Four again. What I would do is I would wait to see if we win the Final Four and the tickets are going to drop dramatically to go to the national championship and just figure out a way to get there the next day because that would be
Pro,
more worth it.
pro tip, pro tip. Well, some of us, me, had this. I had plane tickets, rental car, hotel for the national championship this year a month ago, like a month before the Final Four. I had already like planned it out, like all cancelable. If we had lost in the Final Four, I didn't lose any money. So that's kind of the pro tip. If you think you got a team and you want to do the national championship thing, do it early. Do it where you can cancel it out. And I will also echo your sentiments. I was at the Sweet 16 against North Carolina in Kansas City. Four programs. It was what North Carolina, Auburn,
Kentucky.
Kentucky and
Kentucky, and
Houston.
Texas Tech or
Houston.
Houston. Unbelievable. Small basketball arena, one of the best sporting events I've ever been to. So I think what we're all saying is, next time Auburn's on one of these runs, make sure you try to get there. I had a friend in Kentucky who got to go to the first round even. So just getting to go to those things is really special and it's very unique. And I'm glad. I was really hoping to be there, Ryan. I was going to be there the next morning if we had won, and that's happened to me both times. So I still need to go to the Final Four when we make it again because Ben says we're going to have a
And
better team. So
don't hold your breath. And I think we've learned enough as a fan base not to hold our breath because every year, no matter what the sport is, the other sport we don't talk about on this podcast too. And here, every time we do something amazing and great, there's always a huge portion of the fan base that's like unrealistically optimistic, and they're like, "Ah, we'll be back next year. Don't worry, we'll be back next year. This program is rolling. We're doing this." That's not how it works. It's not how it works.
Yes, it is.
Enjoy it when you
Yes.
can. We might be back, we might not be. Just don't I don't want to hear it from our fan base anymore, honestly. Of like, we'll be back next year. We're too good. We built something. No, there's so much luck. There's so much chance. There's so much that can go right and wrong. So many players you can hit on or not hit on. It's only gotten crazier in this transfer NIL
Three of
era.
the
So just don't
last
hold your breath.
three of
Enjoy
the
it while you
last
can.
4 years, we have been SEC champions, either the regular season or the tournament. 3 of the last 4 years, we have been at least a 4 seed, or was it 5 seed the year before? Like, I know it's going to look different. I know it's definitely not going to be the same kind of dominance that we saw from this year. But I think Auburn basketball is here to stay. As long as Bruce and Steven and the gang are still here, we're still paying Burgo. We're still paying Ira. We're still paying Coach
That's what we
Keys.
really got to cross our fingers for. We haven't talked about that at all, but we got to seal this podcast up here in a second. But like the players come and go, and nowadays you might as well expect that you're going to have complete roster turnover. We are entering this world a year or two later than I expected, or that a lot of other programs have had to expect of just complete roster turnover. We said in that first year when Musselman started doing this, I was like, this is the future. What Musselman is doing is the future. You're going to have complete clear outs of players, complete redoing of players. You're going to have minor league systems of other schools that are friendly with your school. You're going to see some insane stuff happen with this NIL and transfer stuff. This will be the first year we really have to clear out essentially the whole program and redo this thing. And if you can keep a coaching staff, if you can keep a guy like Burgo on your staff, a guy like Stephen Pearl, the way we all think of Stephen Pearl is kind of a coach and weight, and that's why we've been able to keep him. But a guy like Burgo has gotten a lot of love on this podcast, in our interviews with him, and nationally now. So keeping somebody like him and keeping the staff together in this Wild West is really big because at least one thing is certain. You know you've got good guys on the bench there.
well, let's be clear. We've won 5 of the last 7 years, 5 of the last 8 years. We've won an SEC title with 5 different teams, which is unbelievable. I mean, by the way, just zoom out at that. And you're absolutely right. It's the staff. It's the staff. It's the staff. Uh, but I think the most satisfying thing about this year and this run in general is we've done it our way. Jackson, you've been one of the most critical, waiting for this moment of like eventually it was going to catch up to us, and it now has. We're going to have to retool this entire team, but it's so got to be so satisfying for this staff to not have been as crazy in the portal as they could have been, not to recruit over guys. I know you always want to just kick our guys out. They chose not to. They doubled down on their guys,
Yeah.
and you can't argue with the results.
We've transitioned into it for sure. This last year was more aggressive than the year before and the year before. The year that we stuck with all our guys, that one year between Jabari and the next or whatever, that was our worst year. We transitioned for sure. I think we already lost Ryan there.
Well,
Right as I was about to seal it
we're
off,
getting
but
ready to transition as a podcast too, folks.
yeah, just a small little update. I don't want to get super deep into it. It's been a long 4 years. We've had a lot of amazing podcasts. We're gonna see what it looks like next year. We're all a little exhausted. We've all had a lot of changes in our lives over the last 4 years. Feel free to reach out to us, text us, message us on the socials. Anything you want to do to, motivate us a little more. But I think you'll see a slightly different podcast next year. In the past years, we've done some years an incredible amount of out of or between season content. I mean, when that Israel year was happening, we were interviewing people left and right. We were covering Israel games for goodness sakes on ESPNU and all this stuff. You're not going to see that
Go back and
this off
listen to those
season.
podcasts, please. It
It's
is
Westry, baby.
incredible. It is incredible. Oh,
I think if you hear a single podcast from us between now and the next season preview, that's great because don't expect it. I wouldn't expect it. And honestly,
Hey, hang on, Jackson.
have one,
too much. Listen, if you're a fan of this podcast, send us a message of what you'd like the podcast to look like next year. There's going to be some changes. We explored some partnerships this year. We're going to continue to explore that. We're hoping to launch some subscription models next year that's going to change the way you get your content and may give you a little bit of insight into some of these group chats that we've been talking about. We've been talking about getting a Discord going.
we do have to get the group chat going. I think that would be the most successful thing.
I think we're gonna set up some tier lists where one you can see what's going on in the group chat so you can watch us panic, and then two so that you can join in and panic with us.
Hey, two things. Jackson, have you considered that perhaps we are the reason Auburn has made the last 4 NCAA tournaments in a row? Because
I thought that was obvious. I thought it was obvious it was us,
When we started the podcast, we were coming off the Sharif chaos and stuff like that.
And folks, I want you to take a minute.
All, that's cool that we've made it 4 years in a row when we always said that was the mark of a program. And you think about all the things we've accomplished the last 4 years. The other thing, though, if you want to kid us to keep doing podcasts, someone out there in the lane, get us Charles Barkley. That's our last.
Oh my God! Thank you for bringing that up.
If you go back to all the interviews, we've talked to Cliff Ellis, we've talked to Bruce Pearl, we've talked to all the coaches,
Sonny Smith, Simeon Bowers.
A lot of players. Like, there's a lot of cool people we've gotten to talk to, which Jackson and I would both say. I mean, the game recaps are fun. The podcast has been fun. Getting to talk to those people and ask like burning questions about Auburn basketball is the coolest thing we've gotten to do on this podcast. But if somebody could get Charles, that's one. And look, some of us, maybe this person talking, kind of wanted Auburn to win the national title and us to send this podcast off into glory by winning a national. It didn't happen. Charles Barkley would be a close second of a amazing.
He's our Moby Dick.
He's
our white whale. He's our white whale.
If we can get
Pocket
Charles
Watch,
Barkley.
Mr. Beautiful. If you've got some connections, like let's crowdsource this thing.
We will have the best well-researched question. If you haven't listened to some of our, because we haven't done it in the last year as much, but man, some of our first season or two, we were on point. Not to brag on ourselves, but like I thought we really impressed some coaches and players with some of the deep knowledge we had to ask. Like, I'm gonna have to ask them.
Please go listen to that Cliff Ellis interview. That Cliff Ellis interview, like the stories that Jackson and Matt got out of him were just incredible. And obviously, go back and listen to Bruce Pearl lie through his teeth about heat check timeouts to the Jungle Auburn podcast.
That'll never die. That we asked all his staff, and like how many times we referenced that Bruce Pearl interview because there's just so many answers we finally got from him and so many things we disagreed that he answered. It was all so interesting. And shout out to the staff and everybody that's come on, and shout out Marlene, to Marlene for helping us get people. Yeah, shout out to everybody in the social media sphere that's come on and helped us. Like, we're not going anywhere, but we got to get a little nostalgic after a Final Four and after 4 years of making the tournament in a row like we wanted to. Like, it's been an amazing run. It's been really cool.
And it's
made our friendships. It's made our friendships so much stronger. Like, I mean, me and Matt already chatted so much after games, but like we weren't great friends necessarily in college or anything. We've just become so much better friends since, and it's given us a reason to meet. It's good for our mental health, at least for mine personally, like to have a time to meet with the guys. Same with Ben. Like, me and Ben live up here in New York, and we've never interacted and texted and hung out more than now. And like, it's been good for me. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the guys for coming on. I hope they feel the same love back,
Well, absolutely, I echo that. And obviously, Ben and Ryan and everybody we've had on has been super helpful. The thing that's super cool is knowing that there were people out there that wanted more Auburn basketball content and for whatever reason chose to listen to listen to us to help get it. Who cares about? We've never tried to monetize this thing or really make it a big thing. I just think it's cool that hundreds of people every game were listening to this podcast, and it's just a cool. It's been fun. Jackson is such a idea person. He's a vibes guy, and this is one of just a great idea that just was the right time at the right place, and it's been super fun. So Jackson deserves all the credit for kind of wanting to do something, and then he hustled. He hustled that first year or two to make a lot of those interviews happen, and to be able to talk to some of the people. I mean, we had Sonny Smith. We talked to Sonny Smith within like the first month or two of this podcast. If you go back and look at it,
It can't help. It can't hurt to ask. It can't hurt to ask.
And we had a connection with his daughter. I think got connected with us, and it was just so super cool for us personally. And then I mean, we have to shout out Ryan's already out of here, but Ryan and Ben's just jumped in. This podcast wouldn't be going right now without Ben stepping up and really
Ben is the gasoline these embers needed after a couple years,
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, everybody. Like it's a long season. It takes a lot of effort. All of our lives have changed. Everybody's grown a little bit. So you're going to see Matt and Jackson begin to be, the dignified alumni of the podcast going forward. So make sure you stick around because they're not going anywhere. But they're gonna be here to peek in from time to time, see how things are going, cool down the hot takes just a bit.
We interviewed Dylan Cardwell at Toomer's Corner after an SEC championship win.
I forgot about that one. We got in trouble for that one too.
We did a live NBA draft podcast with who got in there, Burgo and
it was Burgo and Coach Prue.
Yeah, live in New York City at the New York Auburn Club. That was an amazing event. Like, we've done a lot of cool stuff with the podcast, and we're just waxing nostalgic at this point,
Well, anybody who's listening to 2 hours of a post-game podcast hours later or weeks later after the season's over deserves some poetic nostalgia.
If you're listening to this long, you've probably listened for a while and care enough about it to hear some of this stuff. So we need like a code word for when it's this late a podcast to see if anybody's listened at all, which we've done in the past, and we've had people reach out. I'm blanking on the guy's name. I used to shout out this guy, Caleb Williams. Shout out Caleb Williams, our first ever social media guy.
Where has he been in the chat like all season? He'll show up.
He's not a YouTube guy. Most people aren't YouTube guys, I don't think. Like I wasn't a YouTube person, people either. But shout out Caleb Williams, man. That's my boy, Caleb Williams, from day one. And someone in the chat says, Pocket Watch says, y'all weren't good friends in college. Didn't y'all go to ACA? Me, Ben, and Ryan all went to ACA, and me and Ryan were pretty good friends. And me and Ben even went to church together too. And like we've had our like waves of hanging out more or not, but this is the most we've ever hung out probably. And then me and Matt, we went to the same church together in college and connected through that.
Years apart in college. I was in Auburn for a few years before Jackson showed up.
Hey, that didn't stop me and Cameron. Me and Cameron were out and about doing it all the time.
That was always the problem. They were always 1 or 2 years apart. Man, just things keep getting busier, and that's the way it goes. But chat, we're glad you stuck with us this whole time. Jackson and Matt, we're glad you built this thing. Whatever it evolves into next, it's going to be fun. Everybody, thanks for being here with us. Matt, Jackson, did you have fun?
Yeah, I was going to say, so much fun. So much fun. What about you, Ben? Did you have fun?
Boy, I have never had so much fun in my life as we had this season, guys.
4 years of fun, man, and cap it off after this 4 years right now with the best season of all time. You can't ask for anything better. It's been a ton of fun hanging out with you guys and cheering on our favorite team. You couldn't ask for anything better.
I want to say one more thing for anybody still listening to this. If you just started listening to this podcast like this year or last year, go back to the beginning when we just didn't lose. We didn't lose for like a really long stretch of time and didn't have a lost podcast ever. There's some really funny, you can really hear the roots of what this has grown into from the beginning. I did that once. I listened to the first few episodes back like a couple years
meant later. To do that. I was going to do that before this podcast. I ran out of time. I wanted to listen to the very first one to see what we were saying. Yeah, I might
Jackson,
go back tonight.
You were laughing one time because we had a hit of our podcast get downloaded in Saudi Arabia. And that was when I was overseas. I downloaded the SEC championship episode because I was like, I need to feel good about something. Let me listen to when we won the SEC tournament.
There's got to be some good Germany hits this last time because it was like y'all made made me a voicemail. It's like y'all called and left me a voicemail like by doing a podcast.
Hey,
You
listen,
know,
if you want to feel good about this season, you want to feel good about this podcast, sometime this summer, go back and listen to that game in Tuscaloosa, man. That number 1 versus number 2 matchup. We were all so hyped. I think we had all 4 hosts on for that one. Man. All right, we gotta wrap it. We gotta wrap it.
Ryan's
We'll be here
leaving
all
some
night.
really nice nostalgic stuff in the chat. Ryan, love you, man. It's been good going through life with you as well. Like we've been going friends since 6th grade, so it's been a long journey. But War Eagle, everybody, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that last 20 minutes. Hope you enjoyed the season. We'll see you again some other time. War Eagle.
War Eagle,
War Eagle.
everybody. All right, YouTube. Pocket Watch, thanks for being here. Ike, if you're still around, thanks for jumping in, man. I know you couldn't get on the broadcast tonight, but Ike was doing like yeoman's work in the chat, fighting with some Ole Miss fan who was in there trolling. It was great.
Big shout out to the guys that did the chat with us this year. You know, and now that we're like off the recording order, I know this is still recording, but like at least my thought process on going live on YouTube was that like there was a niche there that wasn't enough people going live after every game, and it's fun to chat with everybody. And it just so happened that we finally figured out like how to do it. That's when all the beat writer podcasts and all the different like bigger like places decide to do it at the same time after a lot of games, which I'm very happy about. Very happy. There's so much more Auburn basketball content to enjoy, but I think we're just glad for our very loyal couple people like Pocket Watch that come in here, and Mr. Beautiful. Thanks, Ike Jones. Like there's a couple guys. Chris Thomas is in here. You know,
Chris
like
Thomas, hell yeah.
there's some I'm missing right now, but like it's just cool to have been able to go through the year with you guys as well. And you always bring up really great points that we utilize in the podcast. So appreciate you guys sticking
And
it out.
YouTube, we're probably going to move to Twitch next year for any of our live stuff. If we try to do live after games, it's probably going to be over on Twitch. That platform's
I'm a
little
Twitch
more
guy. I
yeah,
like
that
Twitch.
platform's a little more geared towards it. It's a little easier to organically develop an audience there because
I
trending
go live
stuff
on
matters.
TikTok. I see some live TikTok people. I asked the
I'm
E2C
too
guy the
old.
other day. He does live TikToks every day. And I asked him, what is your top 10 favorite Auburn basketball podcasts to listen to? I gave him a wide range to try to get us, and he said only his podcast. He said just his. And I said, damn it, I thought you could at least got us like 5 or 6, you know?
Yeah, I can think of 3 off the top of my head, but I don't listen to most of them because you know why? Because they don't get into ball first. They talk
Well,
about
you know, there for a hot moment, for like 2 or 3 games, there was an AI podcast for Auburn basketball with AI hosts and AI content. It was very interesting.
Straight with an 8 out of the jungle, baby.
That's not even the AI one. That's a
Oh,
different
that's not the
one.
AI. It was a different one that was just the AI. Oh,
There was
man.
just, and they deleted it after I called them out on TikTok about it. I don't know if they saw me or if they just so happened to delete it like right afterwards, but it's not out there anymore.
No, they absolutely saw that for sure, and they got roasted.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know Matt's time's limited. I know me and Ben could be here all night, but Matt, thanks for
Boys.
coming. Well,
Thanks,
I'm sure
guys.
we'll keep the chat going strong for you to have something to look at in the morning, you know?
Totally. No, you know, who knows? Like you said, I just think I think we all need to be realistic about our availability.
We'll
moving
make
forward.
we'll make some adjustments. We'll figure it out. But either way, YouTube, you're gonna get the specialist. I think it's time we finally rebrand the podcast. And now that
Rebrand.
now that I have a deciding vote, I think it's time we rebrand.
We can think about it.
Flying Tigers podcast. All the IP is out there for us. Flying Tigers, man. Come on.
Think
We're
about it.
competing.
We'll think 4
Tigers would
years.
be a very Jackson.
I do like that. If you'll make us cool jackets to wear, then that would do it. Yeah, I want a cool like CBS level jacket with a patch on it that has
Listen,
like I have a whole vision.
Listen, if we can get the War Report Network to start bringing us some ad revenue, we'll talk merch. But
One
not
of my
before
favorite
then.
things about
pay
this
for the
whole thing
Zoom.
is that every year when we get people sending us messages thinking we're the student section because we got
yeah.
Auburn Jungle to
On the
handle.
Twitter. Yeah.
That's the thing, by the way. If we do,
Wasn't
'cause
even on purpose. It wasn't even on purpose.
Flying Tigers pod is still available. So if we can, I'm gonna like reach out to whoever's the jungle president and be like, hey, we're about to drop this handle. Please pick it up. Make sure you're the ones that get it. You know what else we didn't talk about? The best moment of the season for me personally, when we were beating the crap out of Mississippi State and their social media intern got it from the computer and somebody tweeted out WDE from the official Mississippi State basketball account. That was so sick. Oh,
awesome.
man. We'll be here all